825-1063, the game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live today from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. And that is Atlanta, Georgia, outside of Truist Park. Well, maybe not technically Atlanta, Georgia, but we're actually closer north in Cobb County in Atlanta, Georgia, ahead of tonight's Braves and Dodgers game. We are hanging out here to celebrate May in the A, in which the Atlanta Braves, you can go to braves.com/May in the A, in which you get $10 tickets, $10 parking, $1.99 hot dogs, $3.99 Miller High Life, and a $25 City Connect on-field cap with free pregame parades and player high fives. It is a Fireball Hot Take Friday. The chairman of the board, David Reed, is here. Hello, David Reed.
Hello, Jared. The weather looks fine down there. You've avoided it all here. Congratulations.
Yeah, so I heard Vingan talking about that when I was driving to Atlanta, and he said, hey, if you're on your way in or you're whatever, be sure to be keeping an eye on the weather. And I said, oh, well, I guess that one's not dealing with me. It's a little windy here, but other than that, everything for the most part is all good in Atlanta. So
that's just because you're there. You brought the wind with you.
In all seriousness, I said this to the midday show. It's the world champion Dodgers are in town, and this is the day I guess the Braves wanted me to be here, and I don't think that's an accident. The world champion, world famous Los Angeles Dodgers with Shohei Ohtani and everything else, they come to town and they decide, you know what? We need to have the Stillman and Company program out there. So we need to have what I call the Brian Callahan conversation. We need to have it. And this is one, again, I hear people talking about, oh, maybe if they do this, or oh, maybe if they do that, or, is Callahan going to stay? Are they going to commit? I saw TD had a story in which TD wrote in the story, he talked to Blake Bedingfield. Blake Bedingfield said, if you draft Cam Ward, you've got to commit to Brian Callahan, not just for this season, for next season, and probably for other seasons after that. And I'm just here to tell you right now, it's easy in May to get up and say, Brian Callahan should be the coach for Cam Ward for at least 2 seasons, no matter what, in May. But I know how the NFL works. I've been doing this long enough, especially NFL teams in which ownership listens to the fans. And you would be shocked to know that the ownership groups that listen the most to the fans just happen to be the bad teams. The Steelers, their ownership group's very proud. They don't listen to the fans. The Ravens don't listen to the fans. You know who listen to the fans? The Jets. They listen to the fans. They listen to talk radio. And the Titans, unfortunately, listen way too much to the fans. And so, again, in May, it's easy to say, if you're going to draft the young quarterback, you better commit to Brian Callahan, not just for the rest of this year, but for next year. And some people have even gone as far to say Cam Ward needs a stability and he needs the same system. And you might as well just commit to Callahan for 2 extra years after this year. But again, like I said, that's not how this works in the NFL. Come October, come November, it's going to be hard to be 5-9 and getting blown out at home by the Philadelphia Eagles in front of 50,000 Eagle fans. For fans just to say, well, we got to commit long-term to the coach. We can't not do this. We've got to be coach. It's going to be very difficult for that to actually work. In fact, I'd say it's got to be somewhat downright impossible for that to actually come to fruition. And I say all of that because with everything that everybody believes in and everything that everybody, believes in and everything that everybody seems to say and want and do, and it's just not that simple in the NFL as much as people want it to be simple. That's good. Thank you. It's just not that simple. And so I know what's going to happen. Come October, they're going to be 5-9. They're going to be getting smoked at home. And instead of the conversation which we have now, which is that they need stability as far as the young quarterback is concerned, the conversation is going to turn into, well, he's ruining Cam Ward. He's ruining the young quarterback. They've got to do something about this. Look at the number 1 pick last year. Look at what happened as far as Caleb Williams was concerned. A generational talent. The Bears fired their offensive coordinator and play caller, Shane Waldron, on November 12th. They fired their head coach, Matt Eberflus, on November 29th. Ben Johnson will be Caleb Williams' 3rd play caller in week 1 of this year. The number 1 pick the year before that, Bryce Young, has had 3 NFL play callers. The number 1 pick the year before that, in 2021, Trevor Lawrence, another quote-unquote generational talent, is on his 3rd. He's on his 3rd head coach. And who knows if he'll ever reach his potential. Again, they said that Trevor Lawrence, of all the draft prospects over the last couple of years, Trevor Lawrence is the best talent, period. And so, again, it's easy right now. It's easy to say, we've got to commit to Brian Callahan, Jared. We can't keep doing this, changing the coach. We have to have stability for Cam Ward. We this, we that. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I mean, I understand. Like, I get it. But I'm telling you how this league works. And the way this league works is the league just decides, no, we're not going to let this guy ruin the quarterback. So when we have the Brian Callahan discussion, it has to almost involve this directly. Are you willing to say today that you, in May, no matter what happens during the season, no matter how stupid some of the things they do, decisions they make, this is a head coach who last year against the Green Bay Packers ran his punt team on the field. Everybody got booed. Everybody booed. The head coach got booed. And then he called timeout and ran the offense back out there and didn't get the first down. And everybody will tell me, Brian Callahan's not listening to the fans. I saw it. I was embarrassed that my coach, the team I was rooting for, would say, oh, the fans are booing me. Let's go for it. Again, he sent the punt team out there. So this is an organization that is so fickle. And yes, it's led by the owner, but the fans, I'm not going to say are the driving force behind that, but she listens to you all. I mean, I had all the people that John Robinson sucks, John Robinson this, John Robinson that. And I kept saying, look, these drafts have been terrible. These decisions have not been good. A.J. Brown spanked the goalpost. But I didn't think you fire the general manager who's won 61% of his games. But that's what the fans wanted. And they were mad because A.J. spanked the goalpost and Amy goes off and makes the move. So are you willing to say today, are you willing to say, you know what? No matter what happens this year, no matter how bad it gets, no matter how dumb some of the decisions they make are, no matter, you could get beat 55-0 at home. Again, they play the Eagles at home this year. I forget who else they play. They play some good fan bases at home. I mean, it's going to be 95% other team fans. Because if you're bad and those happen and everything else, it's going to be, again, like I said, 95% other team fans. Are you willing to say today, no matter what happens, Callahan's going to be the coach? Because if you're not, then don't tell me today that you need stability. And I mean, I almost hold everybody to this. Okay, if you're all in, are you for sure that you're all in? Because again, it's easy to say on May 2nd. It's easy to say, we need stability, Jared. I agree. But then what's going to happen is in the middle of the season, if things are bad, you're going to say he's ruining the quarterback, and you are going to want to just put an end to it right then and right there. So that's how we're starting the Brian Callahan discussion. Again, we need to have it. I like Callahan, the guy. I have no, trying to think of the right way to say this. I have no conviction that Brian Callahan is a good coach. I have no conviction that he's the right guy. Like, I'm not going to stand up here and yell and scream that he should be fired because I don't believe that he should be fired. But I'm also not going to get up here and yell and scream and say, oh, well, look what he did with Joe Burrow. He'll be able to develop Cam Ward. I'm not doing that either because last year I was incredibly unimpressed by the coach. But that's where we're starting. And again, I want to know what you all think as far as Callahan is concerned, which is, are you ready to say, because they've gone the direction of a young quarterback, are you ready to say, no matter what, you're on board with Callahan as the coach because you value stability? Or are you willing to say, well, hold on, let me get to October, November and reassess how I feel? Because I don't know what Amy's saying internally because they'll never tell you. I have no idea what Amy's saying internally, but I know that what she says today is not necessarily going to be how she feels tomorrow. So that's how we're starting. 615-737-1025. Do you think that you are willing right now to commit to this coach, this 3-14 coach, that you are willing to commit to him today for next season and beyond because of stability or not? 615-737-1025. We are live on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. We are outside of Truist Park. Again, where the Braves and the Dodgers play. It's May in the A. Stillman and Company. We continue 1025, 106 through the game.
I've had a lot of conversations with Amy since January, and I'll just say this: Amy's fully on board with the plan, and she wants to become one of the elite franchises of the league. She believes in what we're doing. I really appreciate her and her support, and how she's really empowered us to do our jobs. I mean, I'm speaking on her behalf right now. We hired Mike to lead that process, particularly building this football team. I think she really believes in what we're doing, and we want to make her proud. So we're working hard to do that.
That was Chad Brinker earlier this week asked, hey, how on board with the plan is Amy? And of course, Chad Brinker is going to tell you 100% Amy's on board. We're going to make her proud. You're going to see. And maybe in the conversations he has with her, and she did just promote him. So, I would venture to guess she is behind the plan right now, 100%. But if there's anything I've learned about Amy Adams Strunk over the years, it's inevitable with Amy Adams Strunk that she goes all in on one decision and then 20 minutes later changes her mind. John Robinson and Mike Vrabel got contract extensions before the start of the 2022 season. Robinson didn't make it alive out of the 2022 season, and according to a report in The Athletic, she thought and strongly considered firing Vrabel after the 2022 season. 1 year removed from being coach of the year, she considered firing him as head coach. A year later, she promoted Ran Carthon to vice president, Chad Brinker to president, put Ran Carthon contractually in charge of the football team, and said, fans be excited about having Ran, cap space, and a new young quarterback. A year later, Ran's gone. She doesn't care about spending money in free agency as much anymore. And nobody's excited about the new young quarterback, which takes us to now, where right now the Titans seem to believe that, hey, there's got to be a plan in place. Mike Borgonzi said it before the draft, that stability for Cam Ward's going to be very important. But yet, here we sit when it comes to Brian Callahan. And the one thing I've said is, do you really believe in the stability that much, that it is that important, that in order to not reset the clock on Cam Ward, that you have to accept whatever Callahan gives you this year? Now, I don't know if you guys noticed in the first segment, as I talked about, look, I know how this league works. I know that it's easy in May to say, we need to have stability. We need Brian Callahan and Cam Ward together forever. And how much harder that is to believe in October and November when your team's not doing well. And the team I keep referencing, it's the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears are not a well-run franchise, and it starts at the very, very top when it comes to ownership. The McCaskey family that's run it for forever. And when it comes to the Chicago Bears, and it comes to how they've managed their quarterbacks and their coaches and everything else, this time last year, I kept wondering, why is Matt Eberflus still the coach? 2 years, very unimpressive in Chicago. You're drafting Caleb Williams. Even if Caleb Williams becomes that dude, Eberflus is a defensive coach, so the offensive coordinator will get hired for a head coaching job, and now you're starting all over again. But are you really sold on Eberflus? And people said, Jared, you're crazy. He's not on the hot seat. I was getting calls on Sirius XM about how it's crazy. I texted Porth, and I said, I had a caller call into Sirius XM who's a Bears fan that said Matt Eberflus is not on the hot seat, that there's a long-term plan in place and they believe in him. And Porth, who's the assistant program director at the station up there in Chicago, he texted me and he said, no, Eberflus isn't on the hot seat. Well, again, that's easy to say in May. It's not as easy to say in October and November. So where do I sit on this? Because I have left my opinion out of it. I haven't said they should commit to Brian Callahan beyond this season. I haven't said that, hey, if things don't go well this year, Callahan needs to be out. I've just told you what it is, which is right now the Titans have convinced themselves that this is the right path forward and stability is important and they believe in Callahan and blah, blah, blah. But I also told you, from what I heard, Chad Brinker, when kind of laying out his plan for Amy Adams Strunk, did not include Brian Callahan as the head coach as part of that plan. In fact, It was the opposite. He was kind of like, hey, probably should move on from what I was told. And Amy didn't want to do it. I'm just going to say this. I'm worried there isn't a right answer. See, I do believe that stability is important for the young quarterback. I do believe the right quarterback and the right coach, the way that they mesh, and sometimes it takes 30 years for those guys to look back on it and say, you know what? Dan Reeves, John Elway, we didn't always see eye to eye, but in the end, we did a lot of good things together. Sometimes it's a lot more natural right away. Sometimes it starts off great and then deteriorates over time. Sean McVay, Jared Goff. Sometimes it's pure luck. Kyle Shanahan, Brock Purdy. But I believe stability matters. Like, I believe that it is not an accident. Again, talking about stability. I believe that it is not an accident that Tom Brady sat on the bench for a year, had Charlie Weiss as his offensive coordinator for his first 5 seasons in the NFL before Weiss went to Notre Dame. I don't think it's an accident that Peyton Manning had Tom Moore as his offensive coordinator pretty much the entire time in Indianapolis. I don't think that's an accident. And if you want to go back even further, I don't think it's an accident that Roger Staubach spent all those years with Tom Landry. I don't believe it's an accident that Chuck Noll was able to sit Terry Bradshaw on the bench, Jimmy Johnson, Troy Aikman. I don't think that that's an accident. I also don't think that a guy like Mariota, and I don't know if Mariota would have made it, even if Andy Reid was his coach. I have no way of knowing. But I also don't think it's an accident that when you change a coordinator on him every year, after 5 years, you're not going to get the best version of him. And yet at the same time, I'm not a Callahan. I am a fan of Brian Callahan, the guy. I am a fan of him. I wish nothing but good on Callahan and his family. As I said at the end of last year, I wanted a total cleaning of the house. And what I said was I want to hire a new veteran, experienced football guy to run the operation. The Chad Brinker role, I wanted Rick Spielman. I wanted Thomas Dimitrov. I wanted one of those guys to be in that position. And then for them to do whatever they want with Brian Callahan. If you believe in Brian Callahan, I'm not even telling you if I own the team. I'm not even telling you how I feel. I'm just saying you tell me what you want. If you want to keep him, keep him. If you don't, don't. I know Mike Borgonzi seems to be on board with Callahan. Callahan said great things about how it was working out between the synergy of the scouting staff and the coaching staff for the draft. Yeah, and I remember watching John Robinson and Mike Mularkey. And that seemed to be a great match at the beginning. But eventually Robinson wanted his own guy. Matt Nagy is the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs. Borgonzi comes from the Chiefs. Mike McCarthy was the longtime coach of the Packers, and Chad Brinker comes from Green Bay. There are other options out there that I'm sure those guys in their head are thinking, man, we've got Cam Ward, but we're only 3-8. But if we had my guy as the coach, because that's natural. That happens around the NFL. When it comes to Callahan, I was thoroughly unimpressed by his coaching last year. Was the team terrible? Absolutely. Could Vince Lombardi have won the Super Bowl with that team? Of course not. But the team wasn't very good. And the team was not well coached. And when it did not work out last year and Callahan kept his job, I was expecting some major staff changes. The special teams coach was not enough. I want an experienced defensive coordinator. Why? Because I want Brian Callahan worried about the offense and the quarterback. I thought Brian Callahan last year made a lot of bad, false promises, or at least promises he couldn't keep. Set expectations way too high. That's part of the job of the coach. And this year, he's out there already talking up the offensive line, went guy by guy, and talked about how he expects the line to be better. Let's just see the line go out and play better. So when it comes to the Brian Callahan discussion, and we will get to your phones in a second, 615-737-1025. But I really feel like the Titans are in no man's land. I really feel like the venom this fan base is ultimately going to have, and again, nobody gets in trouble for something they haven't done, and they haven't stunk this upcoming season. But this fan base is very quickly going to look at this coach, and they're going to say, he's ruining the quarterback. He's got to go. But I know in my heart of hearts, you really want to ruin a quarterback? Keep changing the offense on him over and over and over and over again. Keep changing the play caller on him over and over and over and over again. Keep changing the philosophy on him over and over and over and over again. And I promise you, you'll ruin the quarterback. I mean, that's the easiest way to do it. Was Justin Fields some total crap bum at Ohio State? Or did the Chicago Bears and the constant change and everything else stunt the development of a quarterback that had talent but needed a lot of work? But at the same time, I'm just not sold on Callahan. And this is why where I sit, I have such a hard time seeing this work. This is why I have such a hard time believing that as much as the Titans say there's a plan. TD was on the show yesterday, and TD said something along the lines of, Mike Borgonzi's had this plan in the making for years. It doesn't really feel like much of a plan. It feels like the plan that bad teams have, which is no real plan. We're just going to draft a quarterback. We're going to stick him out there. When he's not good this year, we're going to blame everybody but the quarterback. And then next year, we'll hire somebody else. You know what the Bears did last year, what the Patriots did last year, what you did when Mariota was the quarterback. Yeah, we're going to draft him, and Wisenhunt's going to be the coach. And 10 games into that, oh, he's ruining the quarterback. Get him out of there. Again, what's that do for you? 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We are to your phones. Again, I keep asking the same question over and over, which is, are you ready to commit to Callahan or are you not? And if you're not ready to commit to Callahan, then how do you keep this from being this unmitigated disaster when you change up everything on Cam Ward after 1 year? 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. It's Stillman and Company, 102.5-106.3 The Game.
Yeah, you have to have a plan. I think that's the biggest thing when you draft one of these guys, and we certainly had a plan in Kansas City. We were blessed to have Alex Smith there at the time, and he kind of took him under his wing. But there was temptations there to play him early on because he's just the physical talent that he has. But I think it's important as an organization to be aligned and having a plan for that quarterback when you bring him in. And some of these guys are ready to play right away, but you have to have a plan coming in and evaluate them through OTAs and training camp to see if they're ready to play.
That was Mike Borgonzi at the Senior Bowl before they had drafted a quarterback. He was asked about quarterback on Monday, and he talked about competition and reps. They'll figure it out, blah, blah, blah. Callahan talked yesterday about there's going to be a quarterback competition, and they're going to split reps, even though there's only a limited amount of reps that they can have. And I saw a bunch of Titan fans are just like, there's no competition. Cam Ward's the quarterback. And I'm like, well, either there's a competition or there's not a competition. Now, I would tend to agree with you. There's probably not going to be a competition. But if they say there's a competition and you're one of these people that just listens to everything they say and eats it up, then you should have to believe that there's a competition. But I keep wondering what this plan is for the quarterback. And he was offered an opportunity to talk about it on Monday, and he didn't do it. And again, I don't think that you need to hide what the plan is now that you've drafted him. In fact, I actually think it's easier if you just level with your fan base and you tell them, here's our plan. And it could change, but this is our plan with this young quarterback that we just drafted. And everybody's on board with the plan. And maybe it's because I worked with Floyd and Floyd drafted Steve McNair and ran right to the media and said, don't ask, he's not going to play. Maybe because I saw Andy Reid develop a young quarterback and he went right to the press and said, don't ask, he's not going to play. Maybe because I heard Bill Polian talk about Justin Fields in Chicago. And he said if he was the general manager in Chicago, he would have drafted Fields and said, you're going to get to see him in the preseason, and then you're not going to see him the rest of the game. And I'm not saying that means that Cam Ward shouldn't play this year. I have not said that. There have been guys in the past, like Anthony Richardson, who I have said he needs to sit on the bench. There have been other guys who I've looked at that I'm like, no, Caleb Williams is ready, put him out. Cam Ward, I'm kind of in between. Personally, I would sit Cam Ward. But that's just me. And then if Cam Ward goes into camp and looks like he's ready, fine, put him out there. But I would be prepared for that not to happen. And that's why if I were GM, you would think there's a chance Brandon Allen's going to be the quarterback. But with the Titans, because of their inexperience, they think everything has to be a secret. That's how inexperienced operations run their football team. They think it has to be a secret. They think everything has to be a secret. We can't tell the fans anything. And I actually think for Callahan's sake, I think for Ward's sake, I think for Borgonzi's sake, they should probably be on the level with everybody right now. Like, I remember Floyd told me that when they drafted McNair, they had a 5-year plan. And year 5, they were in the Super Bowl. And I thought, wow, that seemed to really work out well. But I do wonder if this team hadn't been in the process of moving, if the fan base would have been okay with a 5-year plan at quarterback. Or after the second 8-8 year, they said, that's enough. That's enough. He's out. He's done. He sucks. But because the Titans are young, the Titans are inexperienced, the Titans think, oh, no, we don't share anything with the fans. We have to keep everything to ourselves. We don't want the media. We don't want the public. We don't want anybody to know anybody. The only people that are allowed to know are the people in the circle of trust. Because of that, I think they're ultimately doing a disservice to all of us that are sitting here saying, so what's your plan? And what's this mean for the coach? If they start 0-3 and the Titans say, hey, be ready for this to be our plan, and we may start 0-3 and it's going to be bad, are they going to be okay with it? If Brandon Allen is the starting quarterback, or if Will Levis is the starting quarterback, are you going to sit there and say, oh my God, Cam Ward's a bust? When Cam Ward is probably better than those guys and is definitely going to be better than those guys, you would hope. So that one's starting to bother me too, this idea of, oh, they've got a plan. What's the plan? We're not going to tell you. Oh, okay. 615-737-1025. One texter says, on a Fireball Hot Take Friday, and our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter says, I have not heard anyone within the organization come out and say exactly we're firing the coach at the end of this season and they're not going to be good this upcoming year. So go ahead and get your mind wrapped around that. And I said, get my mind wrapped around what? And he said that the Titans are going to be bad next season and it's possible they'll be in the exact same position they were this year. So they're not going to be in the same position that they were this year next year, because here's what happens in the NFL. When you draft a quarterback for a year, that quarterback is off limits from any type of criticism. Caleb's not the problem in Chicago. Drake's not the problem in New England. These guys are not the problem. It always goes to the coach or it goes to the general manager, and usually they get a coach, and then the team goes out and hires a coach for the quarterback. And then when that doesn't work, all of a sudden it turns into, okay, now this guy is not working out because we hired the coach for it. And let's use the Bears as an example, because the Bears, I think, are the perfect organization that we can highlight and say they're not so stupid because of ego like Carolina, but they're stupid. Kind of like you. And Chicago has hired Caleb a coach. This Ben Johnson, you listen to those people in Chicago, they don't think Ben Johnson, they don't think he can do anything wrong. They must not have watched the playoff game against Washington. They don't think Ben Johnson can do any wrong. They think Ben Johnson's best. So now they've gotten Caleb a coach. So now they think now Caleb's going to start to get some of the blame. So you say they'll be in the same position. There's no shot they're in this position next year, because what's going to happen is even if they go 0-17, and let's say Arch Manning wins the Heisman Trophy and is the best quarterback and is coming out in his number one, everybody here will be saying they got to get Cam Wardell. Cam gets no criticism this year. The next year, I think they get him a coach and then the criticism comes. Andrew says, Jared, you are turning into the man who cried wolf. There is always some big emergency. And honestly, after your idiotic argument with Chris Sanders about Xavier Restrepo, I am starting to doubt your opinions. Well, first of all, I still can't believe that Chris Sanders, whose number one attribute in the NFL was speed, is thinking that he would have been the same player that he was if he didn't have any speed. I cannot get over that. Chris ran like a 4.3 and got drafted in the third round out of Ohio State for that. And he's thinking, oh, yeah, if I ran a 4.8, if I was as fast as Trevor Maddich, I still would have been the same player I was. I cannot get over that. And I love Chris, but I think that's ridiculous. Also, I'm not sure you can call me the man who cried wolf. I told you this team was going to suck. They're the worst team in the league. I told you Rand Carthon could not be the general manager of this team. You all told me that I would eat my words one day. You all told me, let Rand cook. The Titans told me, after Vrabel got fired, they told me, you'll see with Rand Carthon. I said to them, he is incompetent. They said, you will see. They said, talk to Chad Brinker. Chad Brinker will tell you he's not incompetent. And a year later, they fire him. Chad's replaced him. And Chad's undoing almost all the things Rand did. You know, in the story, I don't know if I have to tell you about the boy who cried wolf. The story is the boy kept saying wolf, and there was no wolf. I told you, the second they fired John Robinson the way they did it, that you were a dumb franchise, that you were one of the incompetent teams in the league. You have won 9 games since that moment. I don't think I'm the one who's wrong. In fact, I think I'm closer to Buddha than I am to the boy who cried wolf. Because I can see this stuff coming. Wisdom. 615-737-1025. More of your phones. 615-737-1025. There's something that normally I think I would care about that I'm not sure I care about at all. And I'm a little surprised by that. And maybe it's because I'm prepared to be disappointed. We'll hit on that next. Stillman and Company, we are live here in Atlanta for May in the A, where the Atlanta Braves have a bunch of homestands, and they are taking on the world champion Los Angeles Dodgers tonight, which is very, very exciting. We're out here. Get your Braves tickets. Go to Braves.com. Speaking of baseball, tune into 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Sounds take on Gwinnett, the AAA affiliate of the Braves. Pregame begins at 5:50. First pitch is at 6:05. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and by Family Leisure.
As far as the number and everything is concerned, I wore the number 1 for a lot of different reasons, and I wore it for a long time, starting back in 1976 when I was in college. And I think I wore it very honorably for the Houston Oilers organization, to the point to where I created a Hall of Fame career for myself. Now I'm part of the Tennessee Titans family, and my Houston Oilers jersey will probably never be worn again. I hope it won't. But the Tennessee Titans jersey is going to be worn by Cam, and Cam will be starting a new, not regime here, but just a new freshness in this organization to kind of revitalize it and get it back to where it was a number of years ago, one of the more successful organizations in the league. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do with his legacy wearing this number. And I'm proud of the things that I did to establish my legacy with the time I wore that number. So Cam, I'm going to be watching your career. I'm here for you. I'm going to help you as much as I can possibly do it whenever you need me. And just wish you the best of luck. And you come from a great family. I think that's where a lot of it starts. And I think you'll do well here. So congratulations on being the #1 overall pick. And now the work gets started.
So that was Warren Moon last week. This week, Warren Moon is at the Kentucky Derby. He was on with Kay Adams earlier today, and he said that the Titans are getting new uniforms and that he's gotten a glimpse of them, and he's seen them, and he thinks that they're hip with the times and that they're kind of got like a futuristic feel to it. So I'm here to tell you what I believe. First of all, for some reason, I do not care that the Titans are getting new uniforms. I don't like the current uniforms. I know they're not going back to the old uniforms when they first moved here. I think the Titans are, when it comes to uniforms, like I think they're just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. And they're hopeful that maybe the next uniform will be the iconic brand that they'll one day have. And it's funny to me because I think about some of these jerseys and I'm like, when you have kind of a dynastic period, you can never change your jersey after. The Cowboys will never change their jersey after the Tom Landry days. The Steelers will never change their jersey after the Chuck Noll Steelers. The Green Bay Packers, after the Lombardi era, they'll never change their jerseys. The Patriots will change their jerseys right before the year that Tom Brady took over, and they're never changing them back. Like, that'll be their look forever. The Celtics won't change their jerseys. The Chicago Bulls will not change their jerseys. The Atlanta Braves, where we are today, don't think they're going to change them. But I have to say this. There is a sentiment, and you heard Warren say it there, that his Oiler uniform will never be worn again. What I believe, based off of, I would say, some informed conversations, are that the Titans aren't just shelving the Oiler uniforms for this year, but they are shelving the Oiler uniforms indefinitely. But indefinitely really probably means more like infinite. That they will not wear the Oiler uniforms again, and that it is more likely that the new uniforms resemble that of the Oiler uniforms. I have to say, I really don't care. And maybe it's because I have no attachment to the current uniforms, especially when they go away from the Navy, which I think is by far their best uniform top, and I hate that ugly little baby blue that they wear. But the only thing that I feel about this, and I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of opinions about what the uniforms are going to look like or what they're going to do or whatever. The one thing I guess my takeaway from this is, remember when they put out that Jim Wyatt story of, we listen to our fans and Titan Blue is something that, that's book. They're just moving more towards that in the future. So they're going to do what they can. And I would not be surprised if some of this was the NFL coming to them saying, okay, either the Texans get them or you've got to go more towards it. And the Titans saying, okay, fine, we're going more towards it. But Warren Moon coming out today and saying that they're going to get new uniforms, that's not really a surprise for me as far as I am concerned. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. If you want to weigh in, 615-737-1025. One texter says, when it comes to Amy, do you think she just constantly has her hand in something, or do you think she just picks a random time to make an owner's decision? And did her interjection start with the firing of John Robinson, or has she done this in the past? I view the firing of Robinson as kind of the first impulsive Amy move, where I've told this story 100 times, but I'll tell it again. The day after the Philadelphia game, because Robinson didn't get fired on Monday, he got fired on Tuesday. The day after the Philly game, I said to Caroline, and this was Caroline's second season, I think, here. And I said to her, I go, you do know that in other cities and other teams that have less stable ownership, the real Kukocks of the world, the Panthers, somebody's getting fired for that A.J. Brown performance. Now, I was, again, thinking like the secondary coach or the D coordinator. She held off and fired the general manager. And that's when I was like, oh, no. There is something awry. 615-737-1025. More of our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. There was a little nugget that was dropped yesterday, and I have been hearing the same thing as far as a Predator coaching change. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman Company 1025, 1063, the game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live today from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. And we are from windy Atlanta, Georgia, where the Atlanta Braves are getting set to take on the Dodgers. We are here on behalf of May in the A. That's right, the Atlanta Braves promotions with 5 homestands, inviting Nashville to come on out and support the Atlanta Braves. And if you know me, you know that I support that as well, because I, in fact, love the Atlanta Braves. So there are 3 teams that I love. If you know me, and I love them like my children, I love the Braves, I love the Titans, and I love the Predators. Now, you know me, you know I'll get on them. You know I'll rip their asses if I feel like their asses need to be ripped. But you know I love them. And so it always comes out of a place of love as much as anything else. So yesterday I was listening to the Midday Show, and they had Elliot Friedman on, and they had asked Elliot Friedman a question about whether or not Barry Trotz, who meets with the media on Monday, is going to retain Andrew Burnett as head coach. Here's what Elliot Friedman had to say.
I don't have any reason to believe that the Predators are making any kind of change. You know, Andrew Burnett is leaving for Sweden and Denmark for the World Championships as part of the Team Canada staff. I don't have any reason to believe you guys are doing it. I think it is naive to the extreme to look at the quality of people who are out there right now, Adam, and think that they hadn't at least discussed it internally. But I don't have any reason to believe, just should we contact any of these people? How do we feel about any of these people? I don't think you're a good organization if you don't at least ask it internally, but I have no reason to believe as we do this right now, the Predators are going to be doing that.
Okay, let me just say this. I have heard he's coming back. So I had probably heard that earlier in the week, and it had been on the grid to get to, but it just hadn't, I saw when Mike Sullivan got let go in Pittsburgh, or when they decided to part ways, Mike Sullivan, that when they decided to do that, people were like, we need to go get Mike Sullivan. And I immediately heard, yeah, Sullivan's going to New York. And I had a pretty good feeling that Sullivan wasn't going to come to a team that's in the middle of a rebuild, which is what the Predators are in right now. And then Rick Tocchet ends up, again, I don't want to say got let go. Rick Tocchet made the choice to not return to Vancouver. And people are like, we need to go get Rick Tocchet. And I'm like, you're not getting Rick Tocchet. Rick Tocchet's leaving Vancouver, probably because he's got the job in Pittsburgh. So those names were already out anyways. But personally, I don't want Andrew Burnett back as the coach. I just think they need to change it up. And so I say this out of a place of love. Monday's a very big day for the Predators for 2 reasons. Number one, Barry Trotz is, by all accounts, going to make it official that they are retaining Andrew Burnett as the head coach, which I have guaranteed on this program would happen only because of the loyalty that the Predators organization always shows, and because Barry Trotz, I knew he does not want to fire Burnett. Now, Jonathan Marchessault's comments on Locker Cleanout Day, I thought gave it a shot, because if Marchessault was saying what he was saying to the media, what was he saying in the exit meetings behind closed doors with Trotz? That's the first thing. The second thing is the draft lottery is on Monday night. Now, I have no idea how the draft lottery is going to go. I have no inside knowledge. Somebody texted the show yesterday and said, Jared, who are the Predators going to draft? I go, I don't know. Where are they picking? Are they picking number 1? Because if they're picking number 1, I'm going to tell you they're drafting Michael Beasley. Are they picking number 2? Because if the Schaefer kid is off the board, they'll take Misa. If Misa's off the board at 1, they'll probably take the Schaefer kid. Are they drafting at 3? Misa and Schaefer are going to be gone. They're probably going to take James Higgins. But I don't know. I can't tell you who they're drafting. But I am scared to death that they're going to get porked by the lot. And I will tell you why. Because I do not believe that these lotteries are on the up and up. So the NBA draft lottery, the NHL draft lottery, they're done by a consulting firm behind closed doors. And then they have a TV show as to who gets the number 1 pick. I remember David Stern years ago got into it with Jim Rome when Jim Rome asked him if the draft lottery was rigged, and David Stern got so offended by it and asked Jim Rome if he beat his wife because he was so offended by the question. So he'd ask an equally offensive question to Stern. But I'm just telling you, 5 years ago, 2020 during COVID, all the teams that lost the play-in series had a shot at the number 1 pick, and it was an equal shot. And so the Predators, who had lost to Arizona, were up for the number 1 pick. Alexis Lafreniere was supposed to be a big boy forward, and he has not become that. But he was supposed to be some big boy forward. And we all gathered around the television with bated breath and watched the now defunct NBC Sports Network as we waited to see the ping pong ball fall because we wanted to see if the Predators were going to get the number 1 pick. And voila, New York got the number 1 pick. And from that moment on, I've just doubted the NHL's draft lottery. 2 years ago, Chicago didn't have the best odds to get Connor Bedard. And I said, but it's a big market and they want to revitalize the Blackhawks because they've been down for a little bit. So the Blackhawks are going to get Connor Bedard. And bam, the Blackhawks got Connor Bedard. I am expecting the worst possible outcome, which is that the Predators will pick 5th in the draft. And if they pick 5th in the draft, all the good players are gone. There's 4 that I think I can live with. So I'm expecting that they're going to pick 5. So if I'm wrong, and they fire Andrew Burnett on Monday, which, again, Elliott says there's no reason for him to believe a change is going to be made. I'm hearing the same thing. I don't think there's going to be a change. But if they fire Andrew Burnett, and if they end up with the number 1 or number 2 pick, because that would essentially guarantee them either Schaefer or Misa. And my understanding is, trying to think of the right way to say this, my understanding is the Predators would be happy to have either Misa or Schaefer. Then that would be what I call Gold Monday. If what I think is likely to happen, they're going to retain Burnett and they're going to get porked by the lottery, then it's Black Monday. But Elliott says he doesn't expect to change. Again, I've been told Burnett's staying. And here's the worst part about all of this. The Predators are trying to thread a very delicate. They want to develop young guys. They want a team that develops young guys. The guys at Milwaukee that they want to bring up, Svechkov came up this year and popped a little bit. Evangelista popped last year a little bit. They want to develop those guys. Plus Kemmel and all of those guys. Whoever they take in the draft this year. But they also, with Stamkos and Marchessault and Yossi and Forsberg and Brady Shea and Saros, also kind of want to be competitive and win now. So it's a very tight needle to thread, a window to throw into. Because let's take a coach like Peter Laviolette. You know, I love Laviolette. I think Laviolette's a great coach. But Laviolette's a win-now coach. And not much of a developmental coach. And if you were to throw in a Carl Taylor, somebody that's a developmental guy, you're saying, okay, well, we're developing for the future. We're not trying to win today. They're trying to kind of do both. So you're not going to get Sullivan or Tocchet or any of those guys that were available because those guys are trying to win now and they want to go to a team that can win now and whose focus is on winning now. There's one guy who's perfect for this job. There is one guy. Reed, I'm going to put you on the spot. There is one guy that I think could coach the Predators, who would probably be the perfect guy to coach the Predators to thread that needle of trying to develop young guys but win with older guys. I'm putting you on the spot. We haven't talked about this. Who do you think that person is?
Peter Laviolette.
No, I don't think Laviolette's developing anybody, but you're close. Right church, wrong pew.
Right church, wrong pew. Is he currently in the building over there?
Yes, it's Trotz.
Trotz. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
It's Trotz. He's the perfect guy to coach this team.
That's a Howard Schnellenberger move right there, isn't it?
Well, you could also say it's a Pat Riley move. Pat Riley was running the Miami Heat, fired Stan Van Gundy, hopped on down behind the bench, or I guess in the case of basketball, on the bench, not behind. That's hockey. It's not going to happen. Like Barry Trotz, has made it abundantly clear. He has no interest in coaching. So that's not going to happen. But that is what I think would be best, is for Barry Trotz to coach this team. And I don't know about giving up GM or not. Could he do both? I doubt it, but that's exactly what they're looking for. Hockey is once you lose the room, it's lost kind of sport. And it felt like to me that they lost the room. When Marchessault's saying what he's saying and Stamkos is saying what he's saying, it feels to me like he's lost the room. And once you lost the room, you don't get it back. So I'm hopeful that maybe all of this is a smokescreen, and on Gold Monday, they'll fire the coach and they'll get a good draft pick. But I am anticipating that they will keep the coach, and on Monday they will get a bad draft pick, which is 5 overall. It's the worst they can pick. They will get a bad draft choice on Monday. And yes, the draft position is way more important than the coach. 615-737-1025. Corey Curtis, News 2. His thoughts on the Titans and Cam Ward in the draft now that it's all shaken out. Where they go from here, we'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. And let me tell all the fine folks out there here on this wonderful Fireball Hot Take Friday here in Atlanta, Georgia, that this week's Nashville's best deal is Prince's Hot Chicken, the original and iconic hot chicken joint. For a limited time, get a $25 gift card at theGameNashville.com/deals. And be sure to join Big Joe Dubin and 1025 The Game from 10 to noon at Coleman Tractor of Nashville this Saturday for Kubota Orange Days. There will be exclusive deals on compact tractors, zero turns, and more with special financing available. Sale runs from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. with demos, deals, giveaways, and lunch from 11 to 1. That's Coleman Tractor of Nashville, located at 7221 Whites Creek Pike in Jolton this Saturday. we are live out here at Truist Park in Atlanta, Georgia, where once again, May in the A, the Atlanta Braves 5 homestands, Braves.com. Check out all that info. And tune in today to 102.5 The Game for Vandy at baseball as they take on Alabama. Pregame begins at 7:15. They've moved it back to 7:30 because of the weather. So first pitch is at 7:30 today. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Corey Curtis, News 2, joins us on the program. So, Corey, I want to start here. Brian Callahan at his press conference yesterday said there's going to be competition at the quarterback position. Do you buy it? What do you make of it? And how do you see this current conundrum with Cam Ward, Brandon Allen, Tim Boyle, and Will Levis?
Look, if there is competition to be the Titans starter, they have major problems because it means they whiffed on their first draft pick. There is competition to back him up. Okay. I think that's the competition. How many quarterbacks do they keep? Which quarterbacks do they keep? Does Levis become expendable, or do they in fact want to keep him? I think that's the only, I think there is a curiosity to see if Will got better, because then it would give you a decent backup and a possible trade chip that might actually be worth something, because Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle aren't worth a darn thing, unfortunately. So, I think that's the only competition. Is I think it's really Will against himself to see if he can be the two for this team.
Okay, so to that, we know the Titans are going to be bad this year, right? Like on paper, it looks like a bad football team. Fair?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And we don't know if the coach is any good or not. And the quarterback is a rookie who played pretty much exclusively in the shotgun when he was in college. What if Cam Ward's not ready? Are you going to stick him out there on a bad team before he's totally ready and let him get kicked in the teeth? What do you do there? Because there's no way to know that he's for sure ready or not ready to play in the NFL. And if Daniel Jones was here, or even if Mac Jones was here, I think it'd be easier to say, we're going to go in the direction of Mac Jones and we're going to sit Cam and wait till he's ready and develop him. But they don't have Daniel Jones on this team or Mac Jones, Corey. So what if Cam isn't ready? Do you stick him out there anyways?
Well, look, didn't Jaden Daniels sit the first 2 or 3 weeks last season?
No, Drake May did.
Drake made it. Didn't Marcus start a week or two?
No.
No? Okay. Well, look, if they deem that he needs a few more weeks, I don't care who they start, whether it's Brandon Allen or Will Levis. This, as they've talked about, and I agree with it, this draft class isn't about this season. It's about the future. So if you think to be better 2 or 3 years down the line, he needs to sit for 2, 3, or 4 weeks, I would have no real problem with that. Judging by his track record, though, going from one school to the next, different coordinators, nothing has slowed him down to this point. I would be very surprised if they did not think he was ready. That doesn't mean he's not going to make mistakes, because he's going to. But I think that they will have a much larger appetite for those mistakes than they will for the ones that Will Levis made.
Corey, what do you make of the trade PK says they turned down? 2 1s and 2 2s from the Giants for Cam Ward.
Look, it's attractive, but if you believe in Cam Ward as a franchise quarterback, I think you still have to take him. So I don't think anything. If you believe he's the guy, and that you're not saying does Jared think he's the guy or does Corey think he's the guy, because we didn't have the pick. They had the pick, and if they believe he's the guy, which they do, then it's a trade you have to turn down.
So in that regard, I do ask you this, which is, if you stick him out there on a bad team, before, and let's say, well, he's ready. We didn't turn down the picks. What's the plan for him to succeed? Because I keep hearing Borgonzi say, you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. He gets asked about the plan on Monday. And other than doing what all the dumb teams do, overdraft a quarterback, stick him out there on a bad team before he's ready with a coach who's on the hot seat. Other than that, I don't see any plan that is any different than what the fans say of draft him. He will lead us to the promised land, and stick him out there.
Well, I'll disagree with that a little bit from the aspect that I do think they have recognized something that they have to have, and that's a better offensive line. I mean, they understand that their offensive line has been hot garbage, and they're actually going to put 5 guys out there this year that you could argue are all legitimate pros. Okay. There's nobody that you're throwing out there saying, well, I hope this guy can play. And we've seen that for years now. I mean, they've got a guy at every spot that you think can play. It's good. It's got to come together. But, the first step in allowing him to succeed is having an offensive line in front of them. And on paper, this is the best one they've had in a while. So we'll see how it comes together. I think the next thing that they can do, and I think that they're built to do, is run the football. He doesn't have to throw the ball 35 times a game right out of the chute. You've got an offensive line that is huge. I mean, they're 700 pounds on the right side. Run the darn football with Pollard and Spears, and don't make him carry you until he's ready. That's what they did with Brady and Roethlisberger. It seemed to work okay.
But it should be noted that Brady and Roethlisberger didn't start week 1 as rookies.
No, but when they came in and did start, they threw 20 passes a game.
Sure. I think Cam Ward should start on the bench. That's just me. Corey Curtis, News 2, is with us on the program. What'd you think of the trade out on Friday night where they went from 35, got 2 picks, and then went with Oladejo and Winston? Do you feel better about, hey, they should have just gone with the one guy with Burden, Eman Wari, or Ezraku at 35? Or do you like the 2 picks that they got with that trade on Friday night?
That's a tough one for me because I really liked several of those players, but they need more than one player. Now, the 2 players have got to hit, all right? I liked Eman Wari a lot, but I think Winston can be really good. He's got a lot. And so, he's got to hit. And, the one that really makes kind of scratch your head, though, is Oladejo, because, they've said it's going to take him some time to develop. He is new to the position. And, with a pass rush, they don't need guys new to the position. They need somebody who can hit the darn quarterback. And so that's the one I really think you're going to be, itching to see make some progress, but it may not be there this year. I think they need players. So I think ultimately it was the right way to go.
Corey Curtis, News 2, is our guest. Stability is kind of a big word ever since they drafted Cam Ward. And I say the cycle for bad teams is draft a quarterback number 1 overall with a coach on the hot seat, fire the coach midway through the first year because he's ruining the quarterback. And then in year 2, year 3, when the quarterback's on his 4th play caller, sit back and say, oh, he sucks. And I've seen it time and time again.
Yeah.
I know you're a Chicago Bear fan. I think that for the last decade, that's been exactly what the Bears have done. Mm-hmm. So are you willing today in May to commit to Brian Callahan, no matter what, that he'll be the coach to start the 2026 season? Or are you willing to reset the clock on Cam Ward's development by going and getting a new coach if Callahan and his group fail this year?
Well, listen, you hired Callahan because you believed in his ability to develop quarterbacks through his track record with who he has worked with. So I think you've got to give him a chance. It would take, a pretty catastrophic job of doing it like you're talking about to pull the plug on that. Because I agree with you, knowing you're drafting a quarterback, if you were going to change coaches, now would be the time to do it. Not next year. You don't need to do that. The Bears are a perfect example. We all knew how ludicrous it was last year that Eberflus was coming back, because no one trusted him. He was a defensive guy to begin with, but no one trusted him and his decision-making ability to develop Caleb Williams.
Sure.
And that's where the big difference is there is trust that Brian Callahan is going to be able to work with a young quarterback because he's worked with some in the past and he should be able to get more out of him. Now, there's other pieces to that, but there would have to be, I think, a pretty big rift between him and the quarterback, and I don't see the quarterback as that kind of guy.
Okay, so let's say this. Let's say they go 5-12, and they finish with the worst offense in the NFL, ranked 32nd in the entire National Football League, but Ward likes Callahan. Do you keep him at the end of the year, or do you start over and say 30 seconds not good enough?
How did Ward play?
As you would, hold on, I'll tell you right now. I mean, as
Okay.
you would expect, the 32nd overall offense. Ward throws for 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 6 picks.
And how many picks?
6.
6? Oh, okay. That's not that many. Yeah, because those I was waiting for you to throw out the numbers for the combined Levis and Rudolph numbers. You know, if he throws for 3,500 yards and 20 touchdowns and only 6 picks, I view that as a pretty darn good rookie year. That's pretty close to what Jaden Daniels did.
Well, that's what Caleb Williams did. I just gave you all the stats about the Bears. 5 and 12, 32nd in total offense. Caleb 35, 20, and 6.
Yeah, you also had a team that gave up on the head coach. I mean, that was clear. And if you see that with the Titans, that the team has given up on him, then yeah, you've got to move on. So, and again, that's why I always say I look more at how people are playing than wins and losses a lot of times. And this is a perfect example of that. You know, the Bears gave up on Eberflus, and I think everybody thinks there's a lot more there with Caleb Williams than we got to see last year. And if that's the way that we feel about Cam Ward and the Titans after this season, yeah, he's going to get fired.
35, 20, and 6 is not a bad rookie year for whatever that's worth.
No. I mean, Jaden Daniels was like 35, 50, and I think 24 touchdowns and 8 picks or something like that. I mean, it's not that far away. He just won games.
And that's why I think that, again, what really matters with the quarterback is winning and losing. I'm convinced of it.
Absolutely. No, you look, absolutely.
Caleb if I had told you this time last year, you're a Bears fan. If I had told you this time last year, Caleb 35, 20, and 6, you would say, sold. That's what I want the rookie year. And then year 2, let's get to 5,000 and 24 and 3. You know, that's to build on. And instead, it was a disastrous year for the Bears.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was terrible. I mean, I still go back to that opening day. Remember how awful that first half was? I mean, Levis looked great in that first half. Williams looked absolutely terrible in that first half. The whole Bears organization looked terrible that first half. And they won 5 games and somehow they won that game. Imagine if they'd lost that one. They would have been 4-13.
Yeah, but in fairness, they did give up a Hail Mary and lost to Washington because of that. Corey Curtis, News 2, Fireball Hot Take Friday. What's your hot take this week?
Is this the end for LeBron being a factor in the NBA? And I think more than that, we always talk about win-win trades. Has this been a lose-lose trade between the Lakers and Mavs?
Well, I don't think the Lakers would be much better even if they had Anthony Davis, whereas I think the Mavericks are headed down to the bottom of the league.
I think they're both in trouble. I mean, the Lakers have no depth, and LeBron's not getting younger, and I don't think Bronny's going to fill his shoes. I just don't. By the way, it pains me to see Dalton Connect wasting away on their bench. I don't know as much as they do, but
yeah, I don't. I watched the game the other night. I texted a buddy at the beginning, and I said Minnesota is about to literally spank LA, and they did. And so I guess I'm not going to get into who played and who didn't play. To your point about LeBron, yeah, he's no longer a dominant player, but it kind of feels like in the NBA, it's like the team is starting to become more important again out of nowhere. Having a good team seems to matter now. Used to not matter.
And I think, people ask what's wrong with the NBA. And I really think it's because the name on the back is more important than the name on the front. It's why the NFL has been so successful, because they have marketed teams for decades, and it's all about the team. They know the players are going to rotate and the players are going to change, but fans stick with their team. It's why the NFL draft is so big, because they want players for their team. They may follow Brett Favre to the Jets or whatever, when he leaves, but it is a team-driven sport, and it's the most popular sport. When you are at the whim of 1 or 2 players, you are in trouble when things don't work out for that player. And that's where I think the NBA has got to make a change.
Yeah. Corey Curtis, News 2, as always, on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Corey, great stuff. Appreciate you. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thanks, dude.
Yep. Corey Curtis, News 2, joining us on the program. We had TD on yesterday. And after the conversation we had in the TD Power Hour, I had an epiphany. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
I don't want to say people should have listened to me, but they should have listened to me. Like I was saying for 2 months that like
You've been saying he's dropping.
Most of the league does not look at him like he's a first round talent. Now I will say this. I think the fall out of the first 2 rounds was about talent and performance. I think the fall after that was about everything else.
Then you become Tebow.
Because I think at that point, like when you get to the 3rd round, now we're talking about for some teams players that are depth or they're developmental, and those players generally have to develop in the shadows. And this was the case. I mean, we've seen a zillion cases of it. But
did you see what he did yesterday?
Your backup quarterback, they want you to blend in with the furniture. It's why Jay Cutler didn't have a second life as a player. It's why Cam Newton didn't have a second life as a player. It's why, again, like why I think Tim Tebow, or at least part of the reason why Tim Tebow and Colin Kaepernick, after it had been deemed they are no longer starters, had trouble finding jobs. It's so like I think there is that. And then there's the way he handled the process, which he handled the process like he was a top 5 lock. Like, for example, Abdul Carter only met with 4 teams. Cam Ward only met with 1 team, really, as far as a visit and everything else. I think he visited the Browns too, but it was very limited who he visited with. If you know you're going that high, you can do that. If you're anyone else, you are auditioning for all 32.
That was Albert Breer on 98.5, the Sports Hub, talking about Shadur Sanders. And I will say this. Albert Breer, Floyd used to always tell me that as a general manager, you want to get information and trade information with the guy that has the best information. And he used to highlight John Clayton as the guy in his era at ESPN that had the best information. After this draft, I'm pretty certain Albert Breer at Sports Illustrated has the best information. I'm convinced of it. And look, I like Bert. I mean, I think he's a good dude, but that's not why I'm saying he has the best information. I think Bert's got great information. And he had said, I am having a hard time finding a scout or coach who has a 1st-round grade on Shadur Sanders. Now, I had an epiphany yesterday when TD was on the program for the TD Power Hour. And it goes back to Shadur Sanders. And it goes back to the negative coverage and the negative reports that we were hearing about Shadur Sanders before the draft. And this was what TD and I went back and forth on yesterday in regards to Shadur that led to my epiphany.
I think someone said that he was in the room with them and it made them feel small. Hey, come on, stop that.
Todd McShay said that after the combine.
Come on.
That 2 teams in the top 10 felt like he didn't care what they thought of him and that he made them feel small.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
Carl Thomas made a song long ago called So Emotional. Leave the emotions out. It made you feel small. Come on, man. Stop that.
Here's what I would say, though. Like that one anonymous assistant coach told Tom Pelissero that the interview that Shadur had with his team was the worst he's ever been in. Mm-hmm. And that Shadur
he was real thirsty to get that out there, wasn't he? I wonder if what his relationship with Deion Sanders is. Not saying that it has to be a good one, but I wonder how bad it is, because that I've seen personally a lot of people, media types. I've seen people, personnel type, they held a grudge against Shadur because of something with Deion, and I think that's just ridiculous. Next question, man.
But let's just say that assistant coach was telling the truth, like that he sat in that interview and he was like, my goodness, this is the worst interview I've sat through. Mm-hmm. This kid is obnoxious. This kid doesn't care about what we're talking about. This kid doesn't. I mean, I feel like a lot of people just got mad because it was an anonymous dig of the week before the draft. And it kind of feels like that ended up being the truth, right?
Is it? Have you ever interacted with Shadur Sanders?
No, but he didn't fall for no reason.
So don't tell me it's the truth that, all of this. Come on, man. We got other stuff.
But we can agree he's not a 5th-round pick, right?
Right.
Okay, so if that's the case, then there has to be like another reason. Like Mike Green is not did he go in the 3rd round or the 2nd round?
2nd round.
Late 2nd. Mike Green's a 1st round.
I'm sure there are other people with other questions. Like let's respect other people's
Well,
questions.
but I'm just saying,
you could talk
isn't
about
there a
that.
chance
You
that
got
that's
an
true?
hour after I'm going to talk about that. I said what I said about it. We got other people. There's another caller on the board, right?
It hit me yesterday. That's why the media was shocked by Shadur Sanders' fall. Because every negative piece that came out about Shadur, reports, Todd McShay talks to teams. He said, I talked to 2 teams that are picking in the top 10 who were off put by Shadur Sanders. He made them feel small. He didn't care what they thought, etc. And what happened? Josina Anderson came out and basically called him a racist for reporting. Yesterday, we're talking about those reports with TD. We're talking about the report that Tom Pelissero put out there, where Tom Pelissero said Shadur Sanders, he talked to an assistant coach who said it was the worst interview he'd ever been in. And what did the media do? They said, oh, that's fake. That's a lie. That's not true. And the GMs and coaches and scouts, they tried to tell you. They tried to tell you. We're not drafting this kid because he's not that good and he's an a-hole. And everybody kept saying, racist. You cannot tell me that that's they just ignored it. The media ignored it. And then he fell and they looked and they said, how could this be? I'm like, did you not see what they were reporting? Tom Pelissero is not some loser reporter. He's one of the lead guys at the NFL Network. And he talked to an assistant coach. He didn't make that up. He talked to an assistant coach who said, this was the worst interview I sat through ever. The kid's entitled and he's not even that good. And again, if this were any other prospect, if that were Teteroa McMillan and Teteroa McMillan fell, we would have said, oh, well, he didn't do well in the pre-draft process. But instead, because it's Shadur, and I don't know, like TD right there, he's a smart guy. He is not willing to listen to the possibility that Shadur Sanders might be an a-hole, that Shadur Sanders might be entitled, that Shadur Sanders might have pissed off all these teams, that Shadur Sanders might have tanked his own draft stock by being a moron. He will not open his ears to it. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. It'd be one thing to say before the draft, oh, that's fake, that's slander, that's not true. But you can't say it after the draft when that is in fact what happened. And again, this isn't about TD. But to me, this is about the media. This is what the Stephen A. Smiths can't understand. They got up there when Todd McShay said after the combine that, hey, I talked to 2 teams in the top 10 that said that they were off put by the meetings with Shadur Sanders. When Tom Pelissero put out there that he talked to the assistant coach that said he was entitled and said he wasn't even that good and everything else. All these people just kept saying, I don't understand it. I don't get it. Doesn't make any sense. TD saying that these teams should have, that their feelings shouldn't be hurt because Shadur Sanders in a job interview for them pissed them off and they decided not to hire him. And TD saying, again, I don't know what the song he was referencing, but don't have hurt feelings, team. It's not about hurt feelings. It's about offering a guy a job. And it's not just a job. It's one of the most important, if not the most important positions in the entire company. And we just didn't want to hear it, so we ignore it. If you're pro Shadur, you spent the entire spring, Stephen A., Josina Anderson, Mel Kiper, you spent the entire offseason when somebody brought a concern about Shadur Sanders to you, you spent the entire offseason saying, false, not true, instead of actually listening to the reporting that was done by reputable people. This is Albert Breer. This is Todd McShay. This is Tom Pelissero. This isn't some bozo that bought a blue check mark on Twitter and is pretending to be Adam Schefter. And it hit me yesterday when TD just refused to even acknowledge that that could have been true, that Pelissero report, again, Pelissero is not a nobody. And when Pelissero said, I talked to an assistant coach, a veteran assistant coach, who said that was the worst interview that I've ever done, and he wasn't even that good. And he's just like, nope, not true. Do you know Shadur? No, I don't know Shadur. So I'm open to it being right, or I'm open to it being wrong. But what happened with the media was they stuck their heads in the sand, and anytime somebody said anything negative about Shadur Sanders, they put their hands over their ears and said, la, 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 don't want to hear it. And now they're shocked. People tried to tell you, reputable people reported things that I guess the media just didn't want to hear. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And as they would say on an infomercial, but wait, there's more on the Shadur front. And I heard something yesterday that, again, at this point, it shouldn't surprise you. We'll get to that next. We're live out at Truist Park ahead of the Braves and the Dodgers today. May in the A for the Atlanta Braves. Stillman and Company, Fireball Hot Take Friday, 102.5 The Game.
I haven't talked about this that much just because I don't think it's that big a deal, but it's a small story, right? So last year, I think I did that Colorado State game for CBS. I referenced it with Hunter, right? But I was doing Bills Dolphins on radio Thursday night for Westwood One. But I wanted to make sure I was locked in for the TV game. I flew out on Tuesday night to Denver. I was told that I could talk to Shadur after Wednesday's practice for Colorado. I go to the practice. I'm in Boulder. After the practice, I'm told, well, he got banged up against Nebraska. He needs to get treatment. Can't meet with you, but he'll meet with you Friday at the production meeting. Okay, no problem. Go to Buffalo, do the game, fly back. Friday production meeting. We talked to Dion. He was great. The coordinators, no Shadur. We weren't really given a reason, but we did not talk to Shadur at the production meetings, which, as you know, starting quarterback, especially a high-profile player like that, very unusual. I walk out of the hotel, and there's a pickup truck in front of the hotel, and Shador's just sitting in the back of the pickup truck. And I kind of regret not going up to him and just introducing myself, hey, Shadur, I'm Ross, nice to meet you, or ask him why he didn't do the production meeting. But it just made me wonder, Dan, like, people asked me, NFL people asked me after that game, what did you think of Shadur? And I said, I didn't get to talk to him. Maybe he's the greatest kid ever. Maybe he's a bad kid. I don't know. But I told them the story, and they just kind of nodded their head. And it just made me wonder, Dan, how many stories are there like that?
That was Ross Tucker on the Dan Patrick Show, and he was talking about Shadur Sanders last year or whatever year the Colorado State game was that he called. Again, just blowing off the meeting. You know why? Because Shadur didn't feel like he needed to be there. Because Shadur's dad probably told him, hey, you don't need to be there. You do what you want to do. Deion Sanders is getting a lot of blame for Shadur Sanders' fall, and there is something to that. But it kind of hit me with the epiphany that I had that, look, there were negative reports about Shadur Sanders, and the media just didn't want to hear it. They wanted Shadur, TV prospect. They wanted Shadur to be the guy. So they just said that anybody who said something negative about Sanders was just trashing it. And the league said, with their actions in the draft, no, we really think that he was that much of a pain in the ass to deal with. And now you're starting to hear more come out. Let me say where I think Deion really screwed up. And I haven't heard anybody make this point yet. Shadur didn't have an agent because Deion was in charge of the process. And Deion has shown that if he feels like calling you out, he'll call you out. And I think this is why teams like, say, Arizona could never have taken Shadur even in the fourth round to be the backup to Kyler Murray, no matter where they had him on the board, because the fear that, hey, if Shadur doesn't, or if Kyler doesn't play well, here comes Deion saying Shadur needs to play. Shadur didn't have an agent. So Shadur has these bad meetings with teams that, again, at the time, when Todd McShay put it out there, when Pelissero put it out there, when all these guys put it out there, that Shadur was having these bad meetings, people just said, racist. I wonder why they're taking Shadur Sanders down. They're jealous. I forget what Josina Anderson used to say, but it was so embarrassing. The way that she would just kowtow for Shadur. If Shadur had an agent, like a real, reputable, veteran agent, then when he acted like an a-hole at the combine, the Giants could have picked up the phone and called the agent and said, hey, Shadur really turned us off in the meetings. Hey, you need to tell Shadur he needs to X, Y, Z. And then maybe Shadur gets a second chance. But when Deion's your agent, and when Deion says, I'm controlling the whole process, I might even pull in Eli Manning, you're not going to call Deion and say, hey, Deion, your son acted like a total a-hole inside of our meeting today, because Deion's going to go right to The View and sit down with Joy Behar or whomever will stick a microphone in his face first and say, oh, yeah, that team, they lied about my son. They hate my son. That's why agents exist. That's why coaches have agents, players have agents, draft prospects have agents. Even I have an agent. Everybody has an agent. That's why. that Shadur Sanders off-putting these teams and not taking it seriously because he thought he was the man because his dad told him that, thinking he could do whatever he wanted to, that's what scared these teams away. That Shadur can't be a background guy who could be a backup quarterback or a third quarterback. That Shadur has to be the starter, that everybody has to do what Shadur wants whenever Shadur wants him to. And he never had the opportunity to show that, oh, no, I realized that was just my own immaturity because he didn't have an agent. That's where the screw up was on Deion's part. Anything else? Oh, that's just Deion being Deion. But not having an agent and not believing the reports that were coming out. I remember when the reports came out, they put out a video where Deion was on FaceTime or on Zoom or whatever with Shadur, and he said, we know the game. We Sanders, baby. And they, talked about, oh, yeah, it's all fake. I don't think so. Joel says, so does the epiphany mean you no longer think that Shadur is a TV prospect? No, I think Shadur is a TV prospect. And I think it was TV that was shocked because TV didn't want to hear the negativity about Shadur Sanders. Just like yesterday, again, I brought it up with TD. I'm like, could this have been real? And it's like, nope, can't be real. Really? Because it kind of feels like it is. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. There is something the Titans are telling you. I'm not saying I believe it, but the Titans are telling you this. And if you're one of these people that believes everything the Titans tell you, I think you have to believe this too. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 to the game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. That today is Truist Park out here in Atlanta, Georgia, where the Braves get set to take on the Los Angeles Dodgers tonight. And we are here on behalf of May in the A with amazing deals, $10 general admission tickets for the upcoming series against the Reds next week and the Nationals on May 12th through the 15th. $10 general admission tickets, $30 home run porch tickets, $10 parking in lot 31 for the first 500 spots, $1.99 hot dogs, and $3.99 Miller Lights on the upper level, and much, much more. So we're here, of course, ahead of the Braves and the Dodgers today. So the Titans yesterday told you something that I'm not sure I believe, but I don't think I have to believe it, because there are a lot of things the Titans tell me. And there are a lot of things when it comes to the Titans that, quite frankly, I don't believe. And we can go over all of them, but if you remember, a lot of the times it does kind of feel like I don't believe something the Titans think, and you all yell at me and say, Jared, you are a hater. You don't understand. You all believed, let Rand cook. You all believed that Rand and Vrabel were going to see eye to eye. You people thought this time last year Will Levis was a franchise quarterback. You people thought that Bill Callahan was going to fix the offensive line last year, even though he was sticking PT, who I knew sucked, out there at right tackle. You people thought L'Jarius Sneed's knees were good. You people believed in the Tennessee Titans, and you believed in what the Tennessee Titans were telling. I didn't. So when it comes to the Tennessee Titans having a quarterback competition in training camp and in the offseason, a lot of people are just choosing not to believe it. This was Brian Callahan yesterday when asked about the competition as far as Cam Ward and the rest are concerned.
And I think competition is good for everybody. Competition is good for young players. It's good for veteran players. It keeps their edge. So having guys that can play and compete, I think, is a good thing for our football team. It's going to make us better from top to bottom. It'll make those individuals better too, just because they're going to have to come in and perform. And there's always somebody else that's there that could possibly perform better. And I think that's how you get the best out of each position group and ultimately your team.
Specifically with that position, how do you plan to divide or handle reps during OTAs, during minicamp? And is there going to be a first team guy at quarterback?
Yeah, they'll have plenty of opportunities. How those reps get shaken out will sort of be determined by how they perform when given opportunities.
Okay, we're going to have a quarterback competition. In fact, yesterday he said all four guys have a shot to win the competition. Tim Boyle has a shot to win the competition. Brandon Allen has a shot to win the competition. Will Levis has a shot to win the competition. Cam Ward has a shot to win the competition. And what I think is so funny is, again, the people that believe everything the Titans tell them are the same people that believe Cam Ward is the answer to their prayers. The Titans have signed one offensive lineman to a big contract, a left tackle, and one offensive lineman who's a veteran who's got, I think, skins on the wall. But that doesn't mean that all of a sudden I believe the offensive line is for sure going to be better than it was last year. It's encouraging, but it's not for sure. I don't think the pass catchers are very good. You know how I feel about the tight end. I absolutely cannot stand him. Think he sucks. The running game, even though I like Tony Pollard, I'm skeptical that he can be a back who carries the load. And I think Tajay Spears is a third down pass catching running back a la Dontrell Hilliard. But you, the people that love Cam Ward, the people that love, just absolutely love Cam Ward and love the Titans and believe everything the Titans say, don't you have to believe that there's actually a competition going on at the quarterback position? Like, don't you have to? You believe everything else they tell you. Why wouldn't you believe this? And yet there's a sentiment that nobody, including the biggest diehard Titan fans out there, actually believe that there's any chance that Cam Ward is not going to be the starter on week 1. So what is it? Is it that you just choose to believe the Titans whenever it's convenient to you? Or is it that you just don't believe this because you've been told that Cam Ward is the next Mahomes and that the Titans wouldn't even think of taking that granddaddy offer from the Giants because Cam Ward is so good that there's no way that Will Levis or Brandon Allen or Tim Boyle are better than he is? You guys got to tell me. Because when it comes to the Titan fans, all I have heard is that Cam Ward is going to lead this team to the promised land. Again, I haven't heard anybody giving me a legitimate plan that is any different than what all the other teams do, which is overdraft a quarterback, stick him out there before he's ready, and then expect him to lead the franchise to greatness by year 2. And when he doesn't, then the fans start to get upset. Then coaches start to get fired. And then after the coach gets fired, then it gets put on the quarterback. I saw it happen with Zach Wilson in New York. He was going to lead them to the promised land. What exactly did they do for Zach Wilson? I saw it here with Mariota. He was going to lead them to the promised land. And then he didn't. So when it comes to Cam, you believe he is going to lead you to the promised land because the Titans have told you that. And you believe everything that the Titans say. You're the most optimistic Titan fans out there. I think some of you even think L'Jarius Sneed's actually going to help this team this year. He's not. But I have to ask, if you believe everything this team tells you, if you believe that Bill Callahan was going to take Scarbinis like PT and Jalen Duncan and John Ojokwu, and we're going to put them at right tackle and have a environment that the quarterback can survive in. If you're one of these people that thought that Tim Kelly was going to turn Will Levis into Deshaun Watson with the Texans, or that Brian Callahan was going to turn Will Levis into Joe Burrow with the Bengals, then why do you not believe the Titans when they tell you there is a legitimate competition for the starting quarterback position? Because Borgonzi has said it. Callahan has said it. In fact, I haven't heard anybody say that there's not a competition. They said it even in the pre-draft process. Oh, no, Will's a young quarterback in our room. They've said they didn't entertain any trade offers for Will Levis during the draft. They said before the draft, Chad Brinker told Jim Wyatt on Titan Stationery that the reports that the Titans were trying to trade Levis were erroneous. They weren't trying to trade Levis. They want Levis, according to them. Now, again, I don't believe any of this. I believe Cam Ward is going to be the starter. I believe the Titans are running the same quote-unquote plan that they've run before, that bad teams run, that is stick the young quarterback out there before he's ready in a situation that he cannot succeed in. That's what I think they're doing. That's why I think it's going to fail. That's why 3 years from now, I think we're going to be in the exact same spot where the Titans are taking a quarterback, number 1 or number 2 overall, and you all are going to say, no, Jared, this is different. And unless he's Peyton Manning or Joe Burrow, it's not going to be different. But I also don't believe everything the Titans tell me. I also didn't believe in PT. I also didn't believe that the Titans were going to be able to survive with L'Jarius Sneed's knees. I also didn't believe this time last year that Will Levis was for sure a franchise quarterback. Like Brian Callahan told Albert Breer, yeah, have the scouts do the due diligence on the quarterbacks, but none of these guys in last year's draft, none of them are going to be as good as Will. But I didn't buy that then. So I don't have to believe what I'm being told now. So is it a competition or is it not? You people, you tell me. You tell me, is there an actual competition? And what's that say if Will Levis ends up being the starting quarterback of this team next year? 615-737-1025, which is the phone number, 615-737-1025. I do have a theory about the Titans quarterback controversy, quote unquote, that I want to get to coming up next. 615-737-1025. And it's a theory, but I don't think the Titans can actually be doing it because it makes too much sense. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. You know I love Hiller at my home. They take great care of it, and they can do the exact same for you. Nobody wants to deal with a plumbing, HVAC, or electrical emergency, ever. Most of the time when you have to deal with it, you don't know what it'll cost, if it will get fixed correctly, or if somebody is just trying to sell you something that you do not need. Well, the good news is when you call Hiller, their experts are going to solve your problems, and they're going to solve them quickly. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. The price you're told is the price you'll actually pay, with no hidden fees and no surprises on your bill. So book online the same way I do right now at happyhiller.com. That's happyhiller.com.
My conversation with Will when he left was the same, and we came back was the same. There was no, you don't have to make any, crazy conversations. And I think Will's done a really good job of focusing on what he can improve at. And I'm excited to see what that looks like for him. The work he's put in, that's Will's always worked. There's nothing about that. It's always been something he's done. And I think he had a very clear path and what he wanted to accomplish this offseason. And he just spent the time worrying about him. And at the quarterback position in general, that's all you can control. You don't control whether receivers get open. You don't control whether linemen make their blocks, and I think for him, just narrowing his focus on what he can get better at. And I think he's done a good job of that.
That was Brian Callahan yesterday talking about the improvements in Will Levis's game. And remember, Brian Callahan has said open competition for the quarterback spot. Mike Borgonzi has said open competition for the quarterback spot. And that would, as of right now, include Will Levis. Now, I have to tell you, I'm shocked. Because I figured once they drafted Cam Ward, I figured that there's no way, no how would we see Will Levis in a Titans uniform this year. And maybe we won't. I don't know. I don't trust the Titans as far as I could throw them. So who knows what they're actually up to. But a lot of you people do. A lot of you people buy into the hype. A lot of you people believe everything they say, and they say open quarterback competition. Now, Jared in Spring Hill Tech Center, our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and says, who's going to be the starter on the first day out? Now, I think it's going to be Cam Ward. But if I was the general manager or I was the head coach, I'm going to tell you all right now, you would be under the impression that Brandon Allen is going to be the starting quarterback. And I would be amenable to that reality for a couple of different reasons. Number one, I am not putting Cam Ward on the football field unless I know for sure that Cam Ward is ready. I heard Charles Robinson talking on Robbie and Retro this week about a conversation he had with Kyle Shanahan, where he was asking Shanahan questions about Brock Purdy, and Shanahan was really giving him answers about Trey Lance and about how Trey Lance just never got ready. That, they tried to get him ready. They tried, and he just couldn't get it no matter what. And there was no way for them to know this about Trey Lance until they had Trey Lance in the building, until they had Trey Lance as a 49er and were around him every day. And then again, they wanted it to work. They tried for it to work, but he just couldn't do it. And so I think that it is probably fair to say in almost every instance, including Peyton Manning, there is a sentiment of, well, hold on, let's make sure this guy can do it before we stick him out there. Now, some guys play so much college football that it's like, yeah, Bo Nix is ready. He's not going to get much better because he's already in his 20s, and Sean Payton knows what he's looking for. So if Sean says he's ready, stick him out there. But for the most part with young quarterbacks, I think it's a lot easier to sit them on the bench than I think it is to let the toothpaste out of the tube and then try to put it back in. That's what Carolina is doing right now for Bryce Young. Bryce Young was anointed the starter very early on, and Bryce Young probably wasn't ready. Now, the team sucked, which is another thing to keep in mind. But Bryce Young needed to sit on the bench and recalibrate a little bit. And we'll see if Bryce Young makes it. I have no idea. But I go back to the Titans. If I was the general manager of the team, I was the head coach, again, if I was in charge of the Titans, Cam Ward would not see the field until Cam Ward's ready. And before you tell me that Patrick Mahomes sat because Alex Smith was good, no, Patrick Mahomes sat because Andy Reid knew Mahomes had to be on the bench and that he was not ready. It was not, well, I have Andy, so I have the luxury of sitting Mahomes. Or excuse me, well, I have Alex, so I have the luxury of sitting Mahomes. No, it was he's sitting, period. And we're not going to ruin him. We're going to get him ready. With the Titans, I think there's this belief that, oh, well, Brandon Allen, Will Levis, and Tim Boyle all suck, so there's no way you can play them at quarterback. I'm just telling you right now, I am playing Brandon Allen at quarterback if Cam Ward is not ready. But Jared, Brandon Allen sucks. I know. You're going to lose. That's okay. I'm okay with losing games this season if it means not ruining the quarterback for the future. But that's me. I'm not answering to Amy, who might just haul off and fire somebody. That's me. I'm not an impatient fan who's sitting there saying, we got to know what we have in Cam Ward, Jared, because you don't know what you have in Cam Ward, and you won't know what you have in Cam Ward for probably a year. But that's the difference between me and everybody else. The second thing is this. This team might be bad this year. Might be very, very bad, especially at the beginning of the season while a new offensive line is gelling. I am very skeptical about the Titans' offensive line. Not as skeptical as I was last year, and I was proven right about. But I am very skeptical about the offensive line because the center is hurt. So he's not going to be back in there until what? Training camp with the guys? And we know that you can't really improve your offensive line during training camp because you only get X amount of practices and pads, and they don't play the preseason games anyways. So how do you get better on the offensive line? So it's going to take 6 weeks. before this new offensive line where J.C. Latham's playing right tackle, where Dan Moore and Peter Skoronsky kind of have that chemistry together, where Latham and Zeitler have their chemistry together, where Lloyd Cushenberry's kind of the glue that holds the group together. That's going to take 5-6 weeks, 5-6 games before they're even ready to really compete as a unit. We saw that in 2019 when the Titans brought in Roger Saffold and Taylor Lewan got suspended, and it took that group a while. Nate Davis started the year off hurt. It took that group 2 or 3 months before they turned into what they ultimately became, which was the dominant, and I mean dominant group that they were at the end of the 2019 season. So if I'm the coach and Cam's not ready, Cam sits. Brandon Allen plays. Will Levis plays. If I'm the coach and I think I could get by with Cam, but I am worried that the crappiness of the rest of the team is going to put Cam in a situation that will stunt his growth and development, then Cam sits. And Brandon Allen loses those games. And Will Levis loses those games. And you guys can call the radio station all you want on Monday, and you can complain about, oh, Brandon Allen sucks. Oh, Will Levis sucks. Oh, it's awful. They got to play Cam Ward. And that's fine. It's not going to change my opinion. If I'm the coach, I'm going to wait until I have a situation where I can put Cam Ward out there to succeed. And some people will say, because I heard a lot of people say this when I say, hey, be careful about ruining Levis behind this horrible offensive line when he was a rookie. And people said, well, you can't wait until it's all perfect, Jared. Right. I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for service. And I don't want a quarterback getting gun shy the way David Carr did when he was drafted by the Texans, simply because I'm impatient and want to see the new shiny toy out there on the field. At some point, people are going to understand the best quarterback in the history of the Titans, Steve McNair, sat on the bench. The best quarterback in the history of the franchise, Warren Moon, got his start in the CFL. The best quarterback in the history of the NFL, Tom Brady, did not play as a rookie. The best quarterback right now in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, did not play as a rookie. The best quarterback over the last decade, Aaron Rodgers, did not play as a rookie. You think that's a coincidence? You think that's a coincidence? The last 5 MVPs in the NFL, Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. Guess what they all have in common? Nobody's won an MVP outside of that group since 2016 when Matt Ryan won it. What does that group have in common? None of them started week 1 as a rookie. Again, I don't care about, well, we just drafted him, we got to see. No, you don't. What you have to make sure that you don't do is you have to make sure you don't ruin this kid. And I understand some of these guys like Peyton Manning can get kicked in the teeth and they can be okay with it. Joe Burrow can get his ACL ripped up and a year later be in the Super Bowl. But not everybody is Manning or Burrow. Has Trevor Lawrence ever overcome the damage that Jacksonville did to him with Urban Meyer as his coach that first year? I don't know. So, again, my theory would be about, the Titans saying open competition, open competition, open competition, open competition. My theory is they want to give it to Cam so they can say Cam earned it, even if Cam doesn't earn it. But if I was the GM and I were the coach, the reason we'd be having an open competition is because I want you all to understand, I want to set the expectations from the jump. That kid is not going to play until he is ready. We are not going to ruin him. But I don't think the Titans have that kind of force. 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. We'll go to your phones on the Titans. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company live out at Truist Park out here in Atlanta for May in the A ahead of the Braves and the Dodgers tonight. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
they have good pieces. I'm not sure that they have any game changers. And the other thing is that Cam is going to have to learn to play in the National Football League. No one doubts his arm talent. No one doubts his athleticism. No one doubts his competitiveness. And no one in the world should doubt his his desire to succeed, because he's come from a no scholarship Division III guy to the number one draft choice in the National Football League.
There you go. That was Bill Polian on Sirius XM NFL Radio. And that was Bill Polian talking about, again, hey, Cam Ward's got tools, but it's going to take some serious work when it comes to developing him into a player. And so let's go to your phones. Again, the Titans say that there's a competition and that there is a chance that Will Levis is not going to be on the bench this year, that he may be the starter over Cam Ward. They've said all four guys. Tim Boyle might be the starter. Brandon Allen might be the starter. I don't know. 615-737-1025, and our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com if you want to weigh in here on the program. One texter says, what do all the former MVPs have in common? They all had or have a proven starter on the roster their rookie year. You're missing the obvious point. And I replied to that texter and I said, Nathan Peterman, who started week 1 for the Bills in 2018, Nathan Peterman was a proven starter? Was he? I mean, I forgot that Nathan Peterman was this great NFL player. Oh, he wasn't. You can start Brandon Allen. I understand the logic of, well, hey, they got Joe Flacco, so it's easier to say, hey, Lamar sits the bench. I don't care about that. And that's something the Titans could have kept themselves from having to deal with by signing Daniel Jones, or by trading for Kirk Cousins, or by something like that, saying, okay, Daniel Jones is going to be our starter. Last year, Minnesota drafted J.J. McCarthy with the 10th pick, but they didn't know if J.J. McCarthy was going to get to them, so they signed Sam Darnold in case. And they said at this time, we don't know who the starter's going to be. And there was a legitimate competition, and J.J. ended up getting hurt, which led to Darnold being the starter. You could do something very similar here. Why can't you? And I'm getting all these people that are texting into the text line saying, there's no way Brandon Allen can be the starter. If Brandon Allen starts over Cam Ward and we suck and we fire Callahan, doesn't that ruin Cam Ward even though he didn't play? Well, that's a lot of ifs. But again, I go back to, you guys believe everything the Titans tell you, don't you? You guys are the ones that believe when they trade for L'Jarius Sneed with bad knees, and every report that comes out says he has bad knees, and then he doesn't play, and they say, oh, no, it's a quad strain. He'll only be out for a couple of weeks, and then a couple of weeks turns into the whole rest of the season, and then they say, oh, no, it was a quad strain and a quad bruise. It wasn't, an actual serious knee injury. You guys are the ones that believe that, right? I never believed that. I never believed that his knees were going to be okay. I never believed after week 5 of a quad bruise injury that it was actually a quad bruise. So I don't have to believe the Titans now, but if you believe the Titans and they're telling you there's a quarterback controversy, you can't then get mad if Brandon Allen starts a quarterback, because they're telling you there's a possibility that's going to happen. One texter says, what if you sit Cam Ward and play Will Levis and Will Levis is good? What do you do then? So I'm glad you bring this up, because this morning on the Robbie and Rex Road program, I about laughed my ass off so bad that it hurt when Joe Rexrode made a comment about how Drew Brees was excellent before the Chargers drafted Phillip Rivers. And the Chargers didn't technically draft Phillip Rivers. Technically, New York did. They drafted Eli Manning. But I heard that, and I'm like, that's not true. Like, that's not what happened. Brees was awful in year number 3, which led the Chargers, after Brees went 2-9 and threw a bunch of interceptions and landed the number 1 overall pick, to draft a quarterback. They drafted Eli Manning, and then they had to trade Eli Manning because their organization stunk. That's what happened. And then after that, he had a good season. Breeze did. Made the Pro Bowl. Well, they just kept Rivers on the bench. And if that's what happens with Levis, and Levis wins the competition, again, I don't think this is a real competition, but let's say Levis has improved significantly, and the players around Levis improve. Let's say it's like Drew Brees. Again, that's the exception, not the rule, but let's just say, for argument's sake, then you play Will Levis and you win with Will Levis, and Cam sits on the bench and Cam gets to go in when he's ready. That's what you do. I mean, it's not going to happen, but that's, I guess, what you do. T-Mac is up next here on the program. T-Mac, thank you for calling and thank you for waiting. Go ahead, T-Mac.
First of all, I want to ask two questions, but before I do that, I honestly think that they are saying that as a message to Cam Ward to make him, not think he's got the job, to make him put in the work, and to make sure that he's ready. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you have to be more optimistic, because we were saying the same stuff on the same show about the Houston Texans the year they decided to start C.J. Stroud. And I remember you were saying, oh, what are they doing? They're making a huge mistake. And then he come out and had the season he had in his rookie year. Same for the Commanders, right? And then the second thing that I want to ask you is, what is it about Cam Ward that you don't think he's going to be ready? Like, he has the attitude that you want him to have. Like, what is it about him that you don't think he's going to be ready or put in the work to be ready?
T-Mac, do you know how many career snaps Cam Ward's taken from under center?
None, probably.
Okay.
C.J. Stroud not take any.
So he never takes a snap under center in college, and you are now convinced, oh, it'll be fine.
But didn't C.J. Stroud do the same thing?
I have no idea what C.J. Stroud did or didn't do in college. But I am saying, you're saying, how could Cam Ward not be ready? Well, if Cam Ward can't accept the ball from the center on the snap, that's going to be a little bit of a problem, is it not?
Not really. Because I think because he has the attitude to put in the work, and he's shown that. He's shown us something that Mariota didn't show and Vince Young didn't show.
Okay, well, but that would, and I want to get back to that point because I disagree with that too, but that would again go to my point that you're saying, hey, he's shown us. He hasn't shown us he can take the snap from under center.
No, he's shown us he has the attitude to learn.
Right.
Like,
but attitude doesn't matter. I mean, if you cannot, when you say hike and he puts the ball in your hands and you can't take it and operate under center, that you can want it as bad as Will Levis has a great attitude as far as trying hard is concerned, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't suck.
But he's a bonehead. Like, we know that Cam Ward is not a bonehead. Even Will Levis, even if the fans, everybody, analysts, the same stuff that we seen in Will Levis' college tape, we are seeing right now. In Cam Ward's college tape, we know that he's not a bonehead and he doesn't do Will Levis things. So that's the reason why I'm optimistic that he's going to put in the work. Game? Oh, which game?
The Georgia Tech game?
I didn't see that game.
You know that Cam Ward got his team to the Pop-Tarts Bowl, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about all these great things Cam Ward did in college. You're like, we didn't see it from Vince Young. Vince Young won the national title. Marcus Mariota played in the national championship game. And those guys failed. But you're convinced you've already seen more from Cam Ward than those two guys?
Yeah, and Trevor Lawrence was the second coming to Peyton Manning, and look at him. So
right, and Trevor Lawrence, that's a great example. That is a great example of, again, all the guys who have far more experience, thank you for your call, T-Mac, than Cam Ward does, and they weren't ready for the NFL. But now, just because you want Cam Ward to be ready for the NFL, you've decided Cam Ward's ready. How many snaps has he taken from under center? None. That doesn't bother you? Nope, it'll be fine. Well, let's let him prove it first. And if he proves he can take snaps from under center, and if he proves that he's not going to get confused by coverages in the NFL, and if he proves he's ready, then put him out there. I'm not saying he should be locked in jail. I'm saying he's got to prove that he's ready to be quarterback in the NFL so that they don't ruin him. That's the difference. 615-737-1025. More of your phones. 615-737-1025. And again, what have we seen from Cam Ward that we didn't see from Vince Young? Vince Young was the freaking man. He was the man in college. The man. 615-737-1025. It's Stillman & Company on 1025 The Game.
We talked with him before the draft. He's got great awareness in terms of where he's at. And he knows that, stepping into an NFL locker room, he's going to have to earn the respect of everybody in that locker room. And, just first building relationships with everyone, on the team is a big part of it. But that's one of the special things about him that we kind of learned through the process is that he has great awareness. And I think he knows that he has to earn the respect of everyone here.
There you go. That was Mike Borgonzi earlier in the week talking about Cam, saying he's got to earn it. He's got to earn it. But the text line has decided Cam doesn't have to earn it. Cam is as good as Jaden Daniels, which, again, we spent the whole draft process saying This draft class does not have Jaden Daniels in it. This draft class does not have CJ Stroud in it. This draft class doesn't even have Drake May in it. We kept saying it. They kept saying, everyone kept saying it. And nope, 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 nope. Okay. One Cameron says, do you think cheap-ass Amy Adams Strunk is going to pay for a starter and draft a quarterback #1 overall? No chance. The only goal is to sell tickets. Winning and development is secondary. I actually think Amy's heart is in the right place. Now, would Amy have let them, say, pay for Kirk Cousins at something like $40 million and pay Cam Ward $40 million? Now, maybe not. That one, maybe not. But would Amy have let them pay Daniel Jones $10 million to be the starter and then draft Cam #1? I think so. And if they spend the whole offseason hyping up Cam, who's not going to take a snap until the start of the season, if they spend the whole offseason, that'll upsell tickets, even if Cam doesn't play. I do not think, and I could be wrong about this, that if the coach and the general manager come to her and say, Cam needs to sit on the bench, I do not think that she is going to say, no, Cam has to play. If they start off 0-6, then maybe there's a Cam might have to play kind of thing, a la what Bud Adams did with Vince Young. One texter says, you said you'd give hints that Brandon Allen would be the starter, and they are somewhat doing the same thing, saying that he may not play right away, so I don't know the difference. The difference is right now everybody thinks the quarterback competition, if there is a quarterback competition, which, again, it kind of feels like the fans are skeptical that there's an actual competition. But what it sounds like is the fans believe this is between Will Levis and Cam Ward. I would be telling you that as of right now, Brandon Allen is the starting quarterback of the Titans. So if I was the general manager or I was the coach and you asked me, hey, there's going to be a competition or Cam has to earn everything, where's Cam gonna? I would say right now, Cam Ward is the 4th quarterback on the roster. And he will work his way up, and we will see. But we are not going to put Cam, whether it's put Cam 3rd, put Cam 4th, put Cam 2nd, put Cam. We're not going to put Cam in a position that will stunt his development. We will not put Cam out there before he's ready. And he is not ready right now. Again, Tom Pelissero talked to a league executive before the draft who said Cam's got a lot of talent and Cam's got a high ceiling, but Cam is not ready. And that's in the same article where he said that Shadur Sanders, according to an assistant coach, acted like a total a-hole and that he wasn't even that good. And everybody said that wasn't true. And we then eventually find out, no, it actually is true. Shadur Sanders actually did act like an a-hole in these meetings. So, again, if Cam's not ready, Cam's not going to play. I would not, if I was general manager or a coach, come out and say he's not going to be the starter. Even though I would right now be prepared for you all to accept Brandon Allen as the starter and for the team to accept Brandon Allen as the starter. I mean, Chigakonkwo said yesterday Cam Ward's already won over the locker room, even though he's never really been in the locker room before. But I would make sure that everybody knows, no, this is going to be a long process. And so right now, Brandon Allen's the quarterback, and we'll see how Will does, and we'll see how Tim Boyle does, and we'll see how Cam does. But as of right now, Brandon Allen's the quarterback. And if you said that, then it would turn into, Brandon Allen. And I can live with that. If I'm the coach, if I'm the general manager, I can live with the fans sitting there saying, I can live with that. You may not be able to live with that, but I can live with it. One texter into the text line says, Jared, if you keep stretching this Cam can't take a snap from under center stuff, you're going to pull something. No. I'm saying he has to prove that he can do it. How do you prove that you can do it? You do it. Cam can show in training camp, and Cam can show, and he can show if he's ready or not ready. He's going to play. If I'm the general manager, he's going to play in the preseason. We're going to see him. We're not going to baby him, as far as the preseason games are concerned, because we need to see where he's at. We'll baby him when the real season comes. Why? Because in week 1, that's going to be a real pass rusher that's out there. You're not going to see, let's say Jacksonville's the first game this season. You're not going to see Josh Hines Allen in the preseason. You will see him in week 1. So we're going to baby him. That's if he plays in week. Joey from Bellevue says, do you think Callahan would start Allen knowing that he's on the hot seat? Obviously, they will lose with Allen playing, but if they start 0-6 with a bad loss to Vrabel, Callahan will get fired. Well, we don't know what the schedule looks like now. And I would not assume that starting Brandon Allen means you're going to lose every game. It means you're going to lose most of the games, but I would not assume that it means you're going to lose every game. Again, if Cam's turning the football over or Cam is not protecting it when he runs or Cam is doing what he did in college, which is not reading the blitz before it happens, trying to wiggle away from edge rushers, which you cannot do in the NFL like you can in the ACC, you're going to lose those games anyways. And it's not going to make a difference other than now all of a sudden Cam's going to be a little gunshot because he keeps getting hit. One texter says, Jared, a 13-year-old junior high quarterback can take snaps from center. It's not that hard. Yeah, I watched Malik Willis's first training camp, and I remember standing there at practice watching Malik Willis play and thinking, this guy kind of sucks. Like, he sucks. And I remember I said, Malik Willis sucks right now. That was the exact quote. And oh my God, Twitter went crazy. He's just a rookie, Jared. That's not fair. I'm like, it's not about fair. I said he sucks right now. It's the NFL. That's not fair, Jared. He's just a rookie. He's at, Malik Willis, that was him learning how to play under center a little bit. That was a rough time. I said he should have completely redshirted that first year. Now we're starting to see Malik Willis 3 years into the NFL. Well, he's got a grasp on things. But he could not take snaps in that first training camp. And I could not believe that John Robinson and Mike Vrabel actually thought it was a good idea to put Malik Willis in a game, much less Sunday night football on the road at Kansas City. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Chad Withrow from Outkick joins us next here on the program. We're live in Atlanta at Truist Park ahead of the Braves and the Dodgers May in the A. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We're streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. We are live today from Truist Park in Atlanta, Georgia, ahead of the May in the A and the Braves and the world champion Dodgers tonight out here at Truist Park. And again, they got 5 homestands. The Reds are in town. The Nats are in town. Tons of great deals on tickets to come on down. Braves.com for that. Chad Withrow joins us from Outkick, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, your bank for small business. So, Chad, let's start off the top. Titan fans are mad at me, which is nothing new. But they're mad at me because their head coach, Brian Callahan, their general manager, Mike Borgonzi, who could fart perfume right now, according to them, say that the quarterback spot is open and Cam Ward has to win the job. I have said, if you believe everything else the Titans tell you, like L'Jarius needs knees, like Bill Callahan can fix it, like Miss Amy has patience, all the things they say, then you have to believe them on this too, that there is actually a quarterback competition. So with that, I ask you, what's your reaction to the news that the Titans are emphatic in saying there will be a quarterback competition in training camp for Cam?
Well, why would anyone believe them on anything, especially about this? Like that's just a nothing comment. I honestly don't read into that at all. That's what coaches say. You got to come here and earn the job. We all know who's going to start game one. We all know who you drafted number 1 overall to be the quarterback of the team. So I take nothing from that statement. Do Titans fans actually believe it's going to be a competition in camp? I mean, look, there are things that the Titans have said that have been overtly disingenuous in the past, where they've outright lied about things. To me, this is just a case of coach/GM speak for, it's a competition and he's going to have to come here and earn it. But in the back of their minds, they're thinking he's already earned it because we've given it to him, because we drafted him number 1 overall, and we have acknowledged the problem at quarterback in doing so. And the guy who was the first pick of the second round a couple of years ago has been really bad. So he's not going to be the guy. And now we're telling everyone, here's the guy. So I don't know why you or anyone would read anything into those comments, honestly. It's nothing. It's a nothing burger, the whole thing. He's the starter. There is no competition.
I don't either, but I will say this. If you and I were the coach and the general manager, and we were having this conversation, and I thought Charles Robinson said it best when he was talking about the decision that the 49ers made with Trey Lance, and how Kyle Shanahan said, you never really know about these guys until you have them, until you're coaching them, until you have them on your team. If we got to training camp and Cam Ward was not ready and I was the coach or I was the general manager and you were in the other position, I would be open to the idea of starting Brandon Allen or Will Levis so that we can get Cam Ward ready, more so than sticking Cam Ward out there because, we took him number 1 and the other guys suck. And for some reason, I think I'm in the minority about the idea of making sure Ward's ready. How do you feel?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons that you would just go ahead and say it's an open competition. And, I heard you play in some of Callahan's comments about Will Levis and how he's made this offseason all about him. And, this is he's really been improving. He's worked hard. He's done the right things and yada, yada, yada. I mean, if you're going to ever deal the guy and get anything in return, which I don't think they can right now, or they would have, it would be good to at least pretend that he's got a chance at starting. And that this is a competition, at least in the beginning. We all know who the quarterback is ultimately, for sure. I mean, is there a scenario where Cam Ward gets there and, because he hasn't taken any snaps under center, he can't do it or something, and they just can't put him out there to play in week 1 for that reason, and you start Allen or Levis? I mean, that could happen. I don't think it will happen. I don't think he's going to be great from the start or anything like that, but I think he'll be competent and better than Will Levis and Brandon Allen from the beginning, where he can go out there and at least start playing and start learning as the starting quarterback. But I do think that, if you just walk up there and say, look, we have crowned this guy, he's the starter, Warren Moon gave him the jersey, and we're ready to roll with him. And these other guys don't have any chance. I don't know what that serves either. If you just publicly, honestly, they're publicly stating what we all know by making Cam Ward the quarterback, the number 1 overall pick. But I don't think that really benefits the Titans if they say that, because maybe they want people to think that Will Levis is having a great training camp and could contend for a backup job somewhere else or whatever because they want to get rid of him.
So Drake May did not start a game last year until week 6. And he did not play in a game until week 3 against the Jets. He threw 8 passes in relief. I ask you the question, if Drake May can sit, why can't Cam Ward sit?
Was Jacoby Brissett the starter?
Yes.
Yeah, because they had Jacoby Brissett. That's why.
But Brissett sucks.
Well, Will Levis sucks. Brandon Allen sucks. Jacoby Brissett is at least his start. I mean, Jacoby Brissett or Will Levis. Jacoby Brissett's way better than Will Levis.
Way better as a stretch,
at least
but he is
Brissett can go in there and not completely lose you every game the way Will Levis did. So, I mean, it's night and day difference between those two. So, yeah, if they had Jacoby Brissett or someone like that, then I would say, yeah, you could sit him for 5 or 6 games and do that. But I'm looking at Will Levis and Brandon Allen and Cam Ward, and I'm taking Cam Ward, even though I have not seen him take a snap in the NFL. I'd rather the dude who hasn't taken a snap, that's the number 1 overall pick, play over those guys. Jacoby Brissett, I'm with you, not great, but at least he's built up a little bit of clout in the NFL with experience, has started multiple places, has done a few things, and he's not someone who's going to go out there and throw the game for you. He's not going to win games for you either. But I think starting Brandon Allen or Will Levis would certainly just lose games for you right there.
Is Brandon Allen that bad that starting him would be throwing games and would not be similar to putting Jacoby Brissett in there, who's not going to win you any games, but he's also not going to just piss the game away? Like, is Brandon, to me, it's the same as starting Josh Dobbs. It's the same as starting one of those kind of guys.
Well, how'd it work out for the Commanders with Jaden Daniels? I mean,
yeah,
for every example, okay, well, we don't know that. I mean, forever, I didn't think Jaden Daniels was Jaden Daniels. I didn't think Jaden Daniels was some slam dunk star in the NFL from day one when he came into the league. I mean, my point is, like, you can give all these examples of guys who have gone in the league and started right away and sucked and then got the coach fired. And then right after that, the quarterback was in the crosshairs. And I can give you examples of guys who have started right away and done fine. Peyton Manning sucked his first year. Peyton Manning got hit all over the place as the number 1 pick and threw a bunch of picks. And ultimately, he's a Hall of Famer and won 2 Super Bowls in 2 different places. So if Cam Ward is the right guy, starting those first 5 or 6 games that Drake May didn't and getting hit some and throwing some interceptions and going 1-5 or whatever it is to start the season, whatever the worst case scenario could be, is not going to affect his career ultimately. If he's the right guy. If he's not the right guy, then all of these conversations we're having right now are inconsequential because the Titans are starting over again in 4 years. It's really as simple as that.
Do you think he's the right guy?
I mean, I like what I know about him right now. I wish I would have seen more of him at a place like Miami, quite frankly. It's always odd now in this transfer portal era where you see the Miami logo next to him on draft night. And I'm thinking, well, he was there for a year. It was a good year. Statistically, he played very well. It was a great year for Cam Ward at Miami. He did great things at Washington State. I like the fact that he's had to earn it at every stop. I like his story. I like that he played in those back-to-back seasons in the spring and then fall at Incarnate Word. I like that he had to go to a college football outpost like Washington State and become a name there, and then go to he decided he was a second or third round grade, I think, a year ago, and decided he was going to stay in college football and then transfer to Miami, and he parlayed that into the number 1 overall pick. I like that stepping stone like college career for Cam Ward. And I feel good about it. I feel good that he's going to be the best quarterback on this roster right now. But no, I'm not going to sit here and claim that he's Jaden Daniels from day one or even C.J. Stroud. But, I mean, that's the hope ultimately for the Titans is that he is. And I like what I've seen so far, but obviously haven't seen enough yet to really tell you what he's going to be in the NFL.
What if Will Levis takes a massive jump? Pressure's off. He's not expected to be the starting quarterback. He spent that time with Jordan Palmer. Again, I don't expect this, but, Drew Brees had a horrendous 2003 that landed the Chargers the number 1 pick, and Drew Brees went to the Pro Bowl in 2004. And I actually looked it up today. Drew Brees' numbers in 2003 were actually worse than Will Levis's last year. Brees was 2-9, Levis was 2-10. That's one of the only advantages that Drew Brees has on Levis from last year. But I asked this, what if you put the ball out and Levis is the better quarterback? Would you start Levis week 1 or would you not?
I don't put Will Levis anywhere near my football team if I'm the Titans. You're asking me if I don't have him on the roster because I try to get rid of him. But if you can't get rid of him at trade, there's no reason for the Titans not to just keep him around because he is cheap right now. I get all that, but I don't want him affecting my young quarterback because I think Will Levis is a dumb football player. And I think he plays the quarterback position like a stupid person. So I don't want that person around my quarterback, period. No, I would not start him. If they're going to start Brandon Allen because Cam Ward can't take a snap from center, I mean, I think that's a big mistake, but I can at least entertain that. No. Will Levis should have no chance, first off, to win the job in camp because he doesn't need to be on the team. And even if he is better in camp than Cam Ward, no. In no scenario would I start or play Will Levis this season for the Titans at all.
Kind of sounds more anti-Levis than it does the situation.
Well, I'm anti-losing. Look, I've been consistent. You're very good about having a take, Jared, and sticking with it when you're right, especially. Who was right about Will Levis from the very beginning? Me. I was very right about Will Levis. He was terrible. He was bad, a bad pick. He was a bad pick in the second round. I've never liked it. He's a bad decision maker. You can have all these physical attributes as a quarterback. You can be, yoked up to the gills like he is. And we've seen this time and time again. It doesn't make you a good processor of information. Does not make you a good quarterback. He's not a good quarterback. So I don't even know why we would talk about Will Levis being a starter on this Titans team. No scenario. And I don't know a single Titans fan who would ever want that.
But again, I'm saying if he improves, and you're just saying it's impossible for him to improve.
It's impossible for him to improve his brain in one offseason. Yes. That's what I'm saying. Like, he's not going to come back and suddenly be a good decision maker. How old is Will Levis? 26?
Something like that.
Like, he's going to have one offseason. Is he going to go see some guru and come back and not throw the ball backwards to the Chicago Bears or not throw it to the opposition?
I'm not saying this is going to happen because it's the exception, not the rule, but we have seen guys take significant jumps, whether it's Josh Allen, whether it's Drew Brees, whether it's whomever. We've seen those jumps happen before.
Those guys had none of the same question marks that Will Levis had. I don't remember Drew Brees or Josh Allen making the boneheaded plays repeatedly that Will Levis has over the course of his career. I don't remember those guys shooting mayonnaise commercials before they ever did anything in the NFL. Like, these are totally different things we're talking about. I'm not going to sit here and talk about Will Levis and Josh Allen and Drew Brees with a straight face in the same line of thinking. No, he does not need to play quarterback for the Titans. That is that's the final answer, Regis. No,
I don't disagree.
Or take a snap
but
for the Titans
that's like Joe today. Joe Rexroad today said that there is absolutely no comparable way to compare Drew Brees to there's no way to compare Drew Brees in San Diego to Will Levis, and that is just not true because I looked up their numbers from Drew Brees' the year before Rivers and Manning got drafted and compared that to Levis last year, and it is shockingly similar. Brees 2-9, Levis 2-10. Levis better completion percentage. Brees 2,108 yards. Levis 2,091. That is a difference of 9 yards between the two. No, 17 yards between the two. Levis had more yards per attempt. Brees had more yards per attempt.
Numbers. Well, you're just looking at numbers to numbers. Here's what I'm looking at. There is no way any person that knows sports or people could honestly compare Drew Brees to Will Levis. Would Drew Brees ask Peyton Manning on a quarterback show when he has one question for him, how he can further market himself on social media? Would he shoot a mayonnaise commercial before he ever played a game? Would he make some of those boneheaded plays? Would he have the one guy that covered the Purdue program that was the closest to the program, a la Matt Jones for Kentucky, go on your show and say Drew Brees was what, cringy? Or however he described Will Levis in college? No. Like
I
Drew
covered Drew
Brees
Brees in
as a
college.
leader and a quarterback, there is no comparison for anyone that's ever been around those two, between those two people. That's why I'm not going to compare the two.
Again, I did not know what Drew Brees was then, and clearly everyone thought he sucked because they drafted Eli Manning and then traded him for Rivers because they did not think he was their quarterback, and he improved. And I'm not saying Levis is going to do it. I'm just open to the possibility that that happens. You are not.
Everybody in San Diego thought that he sucked. Nick Saban didn't think he sucked. Sean Payton didn't think he sucked.
Well,
Nick
that was
Saban wanted
after
him.
the year. That was
Sean Payton
after
got
the
him.
year that he had where he made the Pro Bowl and everything else.
Yeah, Will Levis is not Drew Brees. I'm very confident in saying this. Their careers will not line up. You can put me on wax on this one. That's not going to happen for Will Levis.
The hot seat is next with Chad Withrow. We're live from Atlanta, Georgia. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company live out at Truist Park in Atlanta, Georgia. It is time for the hot seat. Chad Withrow from Outkick is with us, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Chad, do you have a thought, or do you want to go right to the hot seat?
Let's get to the hot seat. I'm excited.
Number one, where did the media get it wrong on Shadur Sanders?
Boy, I've heard your content on that this week, Jared. It's been fun to follow. You were right. I mean, he's a TV prospect. I think the media, I think they just overhyped Deion Sanders' kid. You know, that was it's not just, and I talked about this today on my show, Deion Sanders is going to prove how good of a coach he is this coming season. It's his first real season without Shadur, without Travis Hunter, without his other son, Shiloh. So we're going to find out how good of a coach Deion Sanders is. But a big part of that package when he went to Boulder was it's not just Coach Prime going to Coach Colorado. It's he's going to bring his star quarterback son. He's bringing Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter obviously delivered. Shadur Sanders looked great at times, you know, put up good numbers. And they went from 4-8 in year one to 9-4 in year two. And I think you just see that and think, okay, because he was thrown out so quickly and Deion kept talking about it as a top 5 pick, I think we just kind of took the bait, honestly. And I'm guilty of that. I thought he would be a first rounder. You know, I think he was going to be number 1 overall, but I was shocked when he fell past the Saints. I was shocked when he wasn't taken in the second round to start by the Browns. And I was definitely shocked when he went in the 5th round. So, yeah, I mean, I think the media completely took the bait, misread the room, did not understand it all or get good conversations going with sources with teams around the league on Shadur Sanders, or teams are really good about, you know, not saying a bunch about him, because it's just, I can't remember a bigger swing and miss from the media standpoint with a prospect than possibly 2nd overall to 5th round. It was a startling drop.
Number 2, why did the media ignore the criticisms of Shadur Sanders when it came to the fact that Tom Pelissero said, an assistant coach said he was bad in the meetings. Todd McShay said that after the combine that he had 2 teams in the top 10 that said he was bad in the meetings. Why did the media ignore the reporting at the time?
I think that some of it's personal relationship with media, with Deion, honestly. I think a lot of it is, well, we've seen guys in the league that have been brash and arrogant, and they've been just fine. Oh, just look at his dad. I mean, he was brash and arrogant. He's a Hall of Famer. So they just kind of dismiss it as that. Mel Kiper kept going back to this, and I've heard so many people argue with me on social media or whoever. I've seen it a lot. Well, tell me about the off-field incidents with Shadur Sanders. Tell me about all the trouble that he caused there. You're not going to find it. And the response is, it's not about just a rap sheet, especially when you're the quarterback. Like, I can talk about this with Will Levis too, and what Matt Jones, biggest Kentucky homer lover of all, said about him. He's just cringeworthy when you're around him. That's a problem for a quarterback. It's not a problem for the starting safety. It's not a problem for the nickel. It's not a problem for the running back. It's a problem for the quarterback. So the fact that he's not been arrested, great. That's good. But you talk about all those meeting reports and the Brian Daboll thing about they gave him something to study or watch and he didn't do it. And then he had a problem with Brian Daboll having a problem about it. He struck everyone as a kid who was born on third base and thought he hit a triple. And that's a problem. And it's a huge problem for the quarterback. Now, if it's like, hey, he's immature, he's brash, he's overconfident, you could probably work with that. But if he's a guy who, when he's not the starter and you're trying to tell him something and he feels like he has all the answers and he's not going to listen to you, you can't coach him. That's an uncoachable player. And teams aren't going to draft that player. And that's eventually what they decided with Shadur Sanders. And I think Mel Kiper is completely missing the point on this and what they saw with him.
Number 3, who will be the Browns starting quarterback this year?
Whew. Joe Flacco. I think Flacco is going to beat Kenny Pickett for the starting job. I think Shador is going to start at some point too.
I think
I keep going back. I mean, it's going to be later in the season, but I feel like he's going to start. Dylan Gabriel's the pick that's very weird to me. The Shadur Sanders 5th round pick by the Browns, by the way, looks like a genius move if they don't take Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round.
Sure.
That's the one that's the head scratcher, because he is not pro quarterback material. He's maybe a 3rd string quarterback in the league. He's a good locker room presence. he's accurate. He's not in any way under consideration for a starting quarterback, and that's what you're doing with a third-round pick. At least you're putting them under consideration to compete for a job. I don't see him doing that. I'm going to go Joe Flacco, starter day one. I'm going to say Shadur starts at some point next season.
I think Shadur is going to be their starter. Number 4, do you think that was good for Mel Kiper Jr. last week, or do you think that was bad for Mel Kiper Jr.'s brand last week?
I think it was bad ultimately. I thought it was good in the beginning. As I told you, I thought he did a good job of sticking with the bit on Shadur Sanders and not wavering from that. But I thought when the whole thing happened when he was drafted and, Louis Riddick is talking to him and then Reese Davis has to talk about, he sounded like a raving lunatic on air. I mean, it was great for ratings, and we're talking about Mel Kiper, but Mel Kiper acting like he's never had a miscalculation on a quarterback in the draft is just crazy talk. I mean, immediately everybody goes to the Mitch Trubisky draft in his draft board and where he had Patrick Mahomes on that. I mean, you could call up receipts quickly. Yes, NFL teams have screwed up quarterback before. Also, NFL teams have nailed quarterback before. Mel Kiper, the same thing. He screwed up the quarterback board before. He's gotten it perfectly right at times, too. So it to me, Jared, felt like he thought it was a personal attack from the league. It's like they weren't drafting Shadur to make him look stupid. That's how he sounded on air. Like it got very personal for him. And I think anytime you get overly personal, it's going to look like an L in the column on television or radio or wherever. I thought he took an L on Saturday. I don't know how many people were watching in that moment. Saturday afternoon, I was. But in that moment, he took a big L.
NHL draft lottery on Monday. They say they're going to do the lottery like they're going to actually pick out the ping pong balls on TV, which would eliminate any possibility that it's rigged. How exciting would it be if the Predators land the number 1 pick? And do you think that will move the needle in terms of excitement if they land the number 1 pick for that day?
Well, let me ask you this. Is there a no-brainer, no doubt number 1 pick this year that everyone knows whoever they get that ping pong ball at number 1, they're going to take this guy?
There's supposedly 2.
Okay, but it's a choice between 2.
Yes.
But that are both no-brainers?
Yes.
Okay, is one a goal scorer?
Yes.
Okay, then yeah, I'll be very excited if that happens for the Preds. It's hard in the NHL draft where most people that are following most sports aren't following everything going on with prospects in the NHL draft, and everybody that is probably listening right now watches college football to some extent or knows about these guys to get overly pumped about it. But when you get that year where you have the no-brainer number 1 guy that everyone wants, that everyone covets with that number 1 pick, yeah, that'd be very exciting to get a guy like that for the Preds. So I'm hoping it happens.
Robbie Stanley sent me, it's the 2 guys. There's a defenseman and a forward, Misa. And at one point, Misa had played 65 games and had 62 goals and 72 assists in the Canadian junior level or whatever it is. Boy, that's a goal a game and 2 assists a game.
Yeah, take him. This is my expert hockey analysis, Jared. Take the Canadian guy who, I don't care what level it is, scored a goal a game and an assist a game, and pass on the defenseman. That is my expert breaking hockey analysis. If the Preds get number 1, that's who I hope they take.
Since we are at Truist Park in Atlanta, last one on the hot seat for you, Chad Withrow. Rank the top 5 major league fan bases in Nashville off the top of your head.
That is a great, great question. I'm going to go Atlanta Braves 1, St. Louis Cardinals 2, Chicago Cubs 3, Cincinnati Reds 4, and Los Angeles Dodgers 5. There are a lot of California transplants. There are a ton of Chicago area transplants. There's a lot in my neighborhood where I live right now. So a lot of Cubs fans too. I think that is a pretty definitive ranking. That's the best I've ever done off the top of my head. That is your definitive ranking right there, 1 through 5.
It's funny because I would put the Cubs ahead of the Cardinals, but the Cardinals would be number 3. I think that the influx of Chicago transplants puts the Cubs at number 2. That's just me. And I would have put the Yankees ahead of the Dodgers. And then when you said the Dodgers 5th, I was like, you know what? I think with Mookie Betts on the team and with the fact that the Dodgers have had more success lately, I think I would put the Dodgers ahead of the Yankees in Nashville too.
I think the one thing I might change is the Reds. The Reds are a very old school one to me because, you know, growing up when all these markets, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Atlanta, you know, equidistant, but people didn't have as many options and there weren't as many transplants to Nashville. Like the Reds were huge. You know, there were a lot of Reds fans in Nashville. I don't think that's as much the same now because Nashville has changed so much. So the Reds may be slightly out of the top 5, and I may agree with you and to put the Yankees or Dodgers 4 or 5 at the end of that list. But I'll stay strong with the Reds in there. But I like these lists. That's a great question.
I would say this. I don't think anybody, and I would have had the Reds 4 on the list too. I really don't think anybody cares about the Reds in Nashville. I think that what happened was, you know, 30 years ago, we were a smaller town. The Sounds were the AAA affiliate of the Reds when they had guys like Rob Dibble and things like that. And the Reds were coming off of the Big Red Machine. And now all of that is kind of passed. Nashville is a new city. There's nobody cares about who the Sounds affiliate is anymore. You know, so I think the Reds may be out of the top 5 the more I think about it.
Chris Sabo and Eric Davis would like a word. But yes, I think I will tend to agree with you on that. That their role is
Barry Larkin, Jose Rio.
Barry Larkin, great player. I think the Reds' role in this town has diminished. But I'm going to go and say Braves are the bullet number 1. I know a ton of Braves fans in Nashville, so I'm sticking strong with the Braves at number 1.
I don't even think it's close. Whenever Fox chooses to put on a Cardinals game or a Cubs game or a Reds game over a Braves game, I'm like, who's making these decisions? Chad Withrow from Outkick, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Chad, great stuff. We'll talk next week.
Yeah, one more thing to the Braves game. If the Braves win 2 out of 3 this weekend, I might be back on the Braves train after giving up hope about a month ago as the season started. So go Braves this weekend.
I agree. We will check in on that next week. 615-737-1025. Speaking of baseball in Nashville, now that I'm here in Atlanta, I have some thoughts about a potential major league team in Nashville, which I want to get to next. 615-737-1025. It's Stillman and Company on 1025 and 1063 The Game. Mad Dog Russo with us. Do we have a chance to steal the Rays? It sounds like the stadium deal for the umpteenth time in Tampa has fallen apart. Nashville is the East Coast city team's leverage to get new stadiums built.
Nashville's going to get
Do
a
we have a
baseball team.
shot?
Nashville and Salt Lake City are going to get the expansion teams because they are not going to get the Rays. You guys are going to get an expansion. Before Manfred retires, Salt Lake City in the West, in the American, whatever division they put them in,
sure,
and Nashville in the East. Those are going to be the two expansion cities. That's me. Going to be the two expansion cities. I don't know what they're going to do with the Rays. But I don't think they're going to save Nashville for a expansion, which is better for you anyway. You'd rather have the expansion team.
I'd rather have the Rays because then you get the Yankees and the Red Sox X amount of times per
But you're going to
year.
get them anyway because they're going to be in the American League and it's a balanced schedule.
I know, but you still get like 13 or whatever it is against the division teams.
You get the 2 series. Yeah.
I just think about how exciting it'll be. You've done this in your career, but how exciting it'll be to be on the radio in June
with the baseball team.
with the Yankees coming to
And the
town for
Red Sox.
3, and we're 2 games out of
I get it.
first, and I get all giddy.
I don't think you're going to get Tampa, but I do think you're going to get an expansion team. I think Manfred is committed. I know there's an issue with Pinellas County. The Hurricanes hurt that whole situation. Who knows what they're going to do with the new stadium? But Manfred is committed. That's a big market. He is. I don't think after the A's leave, he wants another team to leave. So I think he's committed to trying to make that work. But I do think Nashville will be first in line to get an expansion. There will be baseball in Nashville by the end of this decade. How's that?
There you go. That was Mad Dog Russo at the Super Bowl telling us, hey, there is going to be Major League Baseball in Nashville by within a decade. And it's days like today where I'm sitting out here at Truist Park in Atlanta, and I'm a huge Braves fan. But it's days like today where I think about down the road one day us having a baseball team. Now, I don't think it'll be like the Predators where it takes 20 years for them to really catch fire in the city because I think enough of us know baseball, follow baseball, etc. First of all, if it comes to fruition that we're going to get a baseball team, you will never see anybody kiss more ass than me because I want to call the games on TV for the baseball team that we're going to get. I want to, hey, the Dodgers are in town for 3 and I want that. I want that job. So you'll never see Reed. That's the one time where I'm like, hey, I tell it like it is. I'm going to be fair. I'm going to rip the Titans' ass. I'm going to rip the Predators' ass. If we were going to get a major league team, I am already telling you right now, I will. The one thing I will sacrifice my integrity for is to call those baseball games on TV. Is it fair that I'm at least being upfront about that?
I mean, I appreciate the honesty, but I don't see you going all Mel Kiper on anyone.
Really?
Yes. No, I don't. I think a lot of people can say a lot of things about you. I don't think you would ever sell out like that. I think when it comes down to it, I don't think you'll do it.
I think it would be like Michael Kay in New York. Now, I know he's not doing the afternoon show anymore there, but Michael Kay did the afternoon show in New York on the radio forever, and he called the Yankee games. And there was a little bit of a conflict of interest that he had to tiptoe around. I'm willing to tiptoe in order to do it. But what gets me really excited, and I was thinking about this because, with the Braves having us out here today with the May and the A, it's okay. Here are the specials that they're running, not this weekend for the Dodgers, but for the Nationals, for instance, when they come to town. $10 general admission tickets, $30 home run porch tickets, $10 parking in lot 31, $1.99 hot dogs, etc. And every time we talk about it, it's like, well, can Nashville support a baseball team? The answer is yes. And this weekend is an example of why it's a yes. Because it's the Dodgers for 3. And like Mad Dog said, if you're in the American League, the Yankees are coming twice a year. The Red Sox are coming twice a year. And wherever you build the stadium in the Nashville area, because it is not going to be in Davidson County. Let me put an asterisk by that. We'll revisit the asterisk in a second. It's not going to be in Davidson County, so it's going to have to be in Smyrna or Rutherford County, Murfreesboro, or something like that. It's going to have to be like this, the Battery here in Atlanta, where there's all these restaurants and there's, office buildings, and parking garages and hotels and things like that around the ballpark, etc. That's what it's going to have to be. Unless, asterisk, some rich ass guy like Warren Buffett buys the expansion team and the land and builds the stadium himself. You know, some rich guy says $2 billion for a franchise fee, $3 billion for a stadium, you know, $400 million for the land, done. That's not likely to happen. But that would be the one scenario where you could get a ballpark downtown or something like that. But again, we will support it as much as everybody else because it's weekends like this. And this is the one thing I feel like as a sports talk show host, we're missing in town. We have football. We have great college sports. We have a winter sport that gets us through between both hockey and college basketball and everything. We need the summer sport. Soccer doesn't count. Not enough people care. We need, you know, the Yankees are coming in town for 3, and the team is 3 games out of first place, and Johnson is starting this week, and it's Ohtani and Mookie Betts, and that's what we need. And Dog says we'll have it within a decade. And so that's my dream. And when I'm out here and I'm getting ready to go inside for the Braves, the Dodgers, that's where I'm like, man, this would thrive in Nashville. And hopefully I'd be calling the games. 615-737-1025. We'll wrap up with your phone. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company live out at Truist Park here in Atlanta, Georgia. Again, Braves and Dodgers tonight, but we're here for May in the A, where, again, they've got great specials throughout the course. Go to Braves.com and see all of that. Mookie Betts and the Dodgers. Mookie Betts, by the way, actually owes me 2 tickets to a game. I can't blame Mookie for not giving them to me because I haven't called about them. But Reed, I won a silent auction at the Mookie Betts Foundation event in 2020, in like January of 2020. And in the silent, it was a wine package. Somebody was kind of like, are you going to place a bid? And I was like, sure. Jared Stillman, $100. And I just figured, somebody will, bid more. And then when it came time for who was going to win, they said the winner is Jared Stillman. And I thought, oh, yay. Well, it's for a good cause. And there were 2 Red Sox tickets in there, Mookie's tickets for a game, and they got to be, they can't be obviously like a playoff game or anything like that, but whatever. And then COVID happened. And so, no, then he got traded. Then COVID happened. And it was like, well, I'm not going to call and be like, hey, man, you owe me some tickets from 5 years ago. I'm not sure I can do that, but it's always something I think of whenever I'm at a game like this where Mookie Betts is getting ready to play the Braves.
I think it's weighing on you, though. As hard as it sounded like it was for you to come off that $100, I'm surprised you haven't hit them up and been like, hey, man, I can be at Chavez Ravine this weekend.
Well, I may be in LA here in the near future. We shall see.
Okay.
Maybe I'll have to get Mookie's tickets and go to the game. It should be noted the draft lottery for the NHL is at 6 o'clock on Monday. So we're going to have a full show Monday. There may be some special details because of the draft lottery and because it is expected. I am not reporting, but I have heard similarly to that of Elliot Friedman that it's going to be Andrew Burnett. Barry Trotz is going to announce at the beginning of the day that Andrew Burnett is returning as the coach. 6 o'clock is going to be the draft lottery in which the Predators are either going to be picking first, second, third, or fourth, or fifth. And I've been playing with the sim lottery at tankathon.com. And more often than not, the Predators are picking fourth. In fact, let me hit sim lottery right now. Predators are picking fourth. Let's hit it again. They're picking fifth. The hope is they've got an 11% chance to pick first. First or second would really make life a lot easier. Skylar says, I hope the Titans sit Cam Ward, and I don't care if they only win 5 games, if that helps develop Cam Ward. I just worry that Brian Callahan will get fired and screw the whole thing up for Cam Ward. Here's the problem. We have no idea if Brian Callahan is actually a good coach. And if you had to ask me, if my dad bought a team and said, Jared, you can shoot me straight here, should I wait for the Titans to fire Brian Callahan and then hire him to be the coach? I would say no. Because I'm not sold that Brian Callahan's a good coach. Again, I'm sold he's a great guy. Good coach, there's a difference. Anybody will tell you there's a difference between a good coach and a good guy. If he's the wrong guy to coach Cam Ward, then don't you have to fire him? But I do agree that if you fire the coach in year 1 and do what the Bears are doing with Caleb or what the Patriots are doing with Drake May, you're going to set him up to fail. It doesn't mean he will fail, but it's not a good start. And I am worried of something similar. I'm worried that the Titans don't have a plan, and I'm worried that they're almost damn if they do, damn if they don't at the end of the year, or how they play him and build around him, etc. DK in Mount Juliet says, no way an MLB field would get approved in any other county but Davidson. The racetrack was a flop in Wilson County. It would have to be near downtown and close to Broadway in order to be successful. So I think that's why we don't have the Rays, is because Major League Baseball is looking to be downtown. And I'd want to be downtown too. But there's no land downtown for them. And even if there was, the Metro Council is not going to spend $1 on baseball. I don't even know how the mayor feels, but I'm sure he, again, he can't overrule the council. I've talked to enough of these council members to tell you they're not going to give $1 as far as a potential Major League Baseball stadium is concerned. So as is the case with any negotiation, somebody has to budge. Either baseball has to find a potential owner to buy the team and then buy the land and build the stadium himself, or herself, Oprah, if she bought the team, or they have to move it outside of Davidson County. Now, I don't know the details of the racetrack. Sorry, not a big NASCAR guy. But what I will say is, if you build something like they have here, Major League Baseball Stadium, where, again, I don't know how many races they have at the racetrack, but they've got 82 home games here. So 82 dates. Some will have the Red Sox, some will have the Yankees, some will have the Cubs, some will have the Braves, plus office buildings, restaurants, retail space, etc. If you did that in Williamson County, are you sure it would be a flop? If you did it in Wilson County, are you sure it would be a flop? And I'm not so sure of that. But that's what it would take. All right, that's going to do it for us. We are out of here. David Reed, great show this week. Great show today. That's it for us. Again, the draft lottery is coming up on Monday at 6 o'clock. And we will see if Andrew Burnett is still the coach for the Predators. And we will see if this will change the franchise's fortunes. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.